Jeremiah. Chapter 1. The words of Jeremiah son of Hilkiah, one of the priests living at Anathoth in the territory of Benjamin. The word of Yahweh came to him in the days of Josiah son of Ammon, king of Judah, in the 13th year of his reign. Then in the days of Jehoiakim son of Josiah, king of Judah, until the end of the 11th year of Zedekiah son of Josiah, king of Judah, until the deportation of Jerusalem, in the 5th month. The word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Before I formed you in the womb I knew you. Before you came to birth I consecrated you. I appointed you as prophet to the nations. I then said, Lord Yahweh, you see I do not know how to speak. I am only a child. But Yahweh replied, Do not say, I am only a child. For you must go to all to whom I send you and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of confronting them. For I am with you to rescue you, Yahweh declares. Then Yahweh stretched out his hand and touched my mouth. And Yahweh said to me, There, I have put my words into your mouth. Look, today I have set you over the nations and kingdoms, to uproot and to knock down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build and to plant. The word of Yahweh came to me, asking, Jeremiah, what do you see? I answered, I see a branch of the watchful tree. Then Yahweh said, Well seen, for I am watching over my word to perform it. A second time the word of Yahweh came to me, asking, What do you see? I answered, I see a cooking pot on the boil, with its mouth tilting from the north. Then Yahweh said, From the north disaster will come boiling over on all who live in the country. For I am now summoning all the families of the kingdoms of the north, Yahweh declares. They will come, and each will set his throne in front of the gates of Jerusalem, all round, against its walls and against all the towns of Judah. I shall pronounce my judgments on them because of all their wickedness, since they have abandoned me, offering incense to other gods and worshipping what their own hands have made. As for you, prepare yourself for action. Stand up and tell them all I command you. Have no fear of them, and in their presence I will make you fearless. For look, today I have made you into a fortified city, a pillar of iron, a wall of bronze to stand against the whole country. The kings of Judah, its princes, its priests and the people of the country. They will fight against you but will not overcome you. For I am with you, Yahweh declares, to rescue you. Jeremiah. Chapter 2. The word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Go and shout this in Jerusalem's ears. Yahweh says this, I remember your faithful love, the affection of your bridal days, when you followed me through the desert, through a land unsown. Israel was sacred to Yahweh, the firstfruits of his harvest. All who ate this incurred guilt. Disaster befell them, Yahweh declares. Listen to Yahweh's word, house of Jacob and all the families of the house of Israel. Yahweh says this, What did your ancestors find wrong in me for them to have deserted me so far as to follow futility and become futile themselves? They never said, Where is Yahweh, who brought us out of Egypt and led us through the desert, through a land of plains and ravines, through a land of drought, of shadow dark as death, a land through which no one passes and where no human being lives? I brought you to a country of plenty, to enjoy its produce and good things. But when you entered you defiled my country and made my heritage loathsome. The priests never asked, Where is Yahweh? Those skilled in the law did not know me. The shepherds too rebelled against me, and the prophets prophesied by Baal and followed the useless ones. So I must state my case against you once more, Yahweh declares, and state my case against your children's children. Cross to the isles of the Kittim and look, send to Kedar and carefully observe, see if anything like this has happened before. Does a nation change its gods? And these are not gods at all. Yet my people have exchanged their glory for the useless one. You heavens, stand aghast at this, horrified, utterly appalled, Yahweh declares. For my people have committed two crimes. They have abandoned me, the fountain of living water, and dug water tanks for themselves, cracked water tanks that hold no water. Is Israel a slave? Was he born into serfdom, for him to be preyed on like this? Lions have roared at him. They have made their voices heard. They have left this country a desert. His towns lie burnt and uninhabited. The people of Noph and Topans have shaved your skull. Have you not brought this on yourself, by abandoning Yahweh your God, when he was guiding you on your way? What is the good of going to Egypt now to drink the water of the Nile? What is the good of going to Assyria to drink the water of the river? Your wickedness will bring its own punishment. Your infidelities will bring you to book. So give thought and see how evil and bitter it is to abandon Yahweh your God and not to stand in awe of me, the Lord Yahweh Sabaoth declares. It is long ago now since you broke your yoke, burst your bonds and said, I will not serve. Yet on every high hill and under every green tree you have sprawled and played the whore. Yet I had planted you, a red vine of completely sound stock. How is it you have turned into seedlings of a vine that is alien to me? Even though you scrub yourself with soda and put in quantities of soap, the stain of your guilt would still be visible to me, the Lord Yahweh declares. How dare you say, I am not defiled, I have not run after the Baals? Look at your behavior in the valley, realize what you have done. A wild she-donkey, at home in the desert, snuffing the breeze in desire. Who can control her when she is on heat? Males need not trouble to look for her, they will find her in her month. Beware. Your own foot will go unshod, your own throat grow dry. But you said, it is no use. No. For I love the strangers, and they are the ones I shall follow. Like a thief ashamed of being caught, so will the house of Israel be. They, their kings, their chief men, their priests and their prophets, who say to a piece of wood, You are my father, and to a stone you gave birth to me. For they turn to me their backs, never their faces. Yet when trouble comes they shout, Get up, save us. Where are your gods you made for yourself? Let them get up if they can save you when trouble comes. For you have as many gods as you have towns, Judah. Why make out a case against me? You have all rebelled against me, Yahweh declares. In vain I have struck your children, they have not accepted correction. Your own sword has devoured your prophets like a marauding lion. Now you of this generation, listen to what Yahweh says. Have I been a desert for Israel, or a land of gloom? Why do my people say, We are our own masters, we will come to you no more? Does a girl forget her ornaments, a bride her sash? And yet my people have forgotten me, days beyond number. How well you set your course in pursuit of love! And so you have schooled your ways to wicked deeds. The very skirts of your robe are stained with the blood of the poor. Of innocent men you never caught breaking and entering. And in spite of all this you say, I am innocent. Let his anger turn from me. Now I pass sentence on you for saying, I have not sinned. How frivolously you undertake a change of course. But you will be disappointed by Egypt just as you were by Assyria. You will have to leave there too with your hands on your head. For Yahweh has rejected those that you rely on. You will come to no good with them. Jeremiah, chapter 3. If a man divorces his wife and she leaves him and becomes someone else's, has he the right to go back to her? Has not that piece of land been totally polluted? And you, having played the whore with many lovers, you claim the right to come back to me. Yahweh demands. Lift your eyes to the bare heights and look. Where have you not offered your sex? You waited by the roadside for them like an Arab in the desert. You have polluted the country with your prostitution and your vices. This is why the showers have been withheld, the late rains have not come. But you maintained a prostitute's bold front, with no trace of a blush. From now on, do not cry out at me, my father, my beloved ever since I was young. Will he keep up his anger forever, maintain his wrath to the end? You say this but still go on sinning, being so obstinate. In the days of King Josiah, Yahweh said to me, Have you seen what disloyal Israel has done? How she has made her way up every high hill and to every green tree, and played the whore there. I thought, after doing all this she will come back to me. But she did not come back. Her faithless sister Judah saw this. She also saw that I had repudiated disloyal Israel for all her adulteries and given her her divorce papers. Her faithless sister Judah, however, was not afraid. She too went and played the whore. And with her shameless whoring, she polluted the country. She committed adultery with stones and pieces of wood. Worse than all this, Judah, her faithless sister, has come back to me not in sincerity, but only in pretense, Yahweh declares. And Yahweh said to me, Disloyal Israel is upright, compared with faithless Judah. So go and shout words towards the north, and say, Come back, disloyal Israel, Yahweh declares, I shall frown on you no more, since I am merciful, Yahweh declares. I shall not keep my anger forever. Only acknowledge your guilt, how you have rebelled against Yahweh your God, how you have prostituted yourself with the strangers under every green tree and have not listened to my voice, Yahweh declares. Come back, disloyal children, Yahweh declares, for I alone am your master, and I will take you, one from a town, two from a family, and bring you to Zion. I shall give you shepherds after my own heart, who will pasture you wisely and discreetly. Then, when you have increased and grown numerous in the country, Yahweh declares, no one will ever again say, the Ark of the Covenant of Yahweh. It will not enter their minds, they will not remember it or miss it, nor will another one be made. When that time comes, Jerusalem will be called the throne of Yahweh, and all the nations will converge on her, on Yahweh's name, on Jerusalem, and will no longer follow their own stubborn and wicked inclinations. When those days come, the house of Judah will join the house of Israel. Together they will come from the land of the north to the country I gave your ancestors as their heritage. And I was thinking, how am I to rank you as my children? I shall give you a country of delights, the fairest heritage of all the nations. I thought, you will call me father and will never cease to follow me. But like a woman betraying her lover, house of Israel, you have betrayed me, Yahweh declares. A noise is heard on the bare heights, the weeping and entreaty of the Israelites, for they have gone wildly astray, have forgotten Yahweh their God. Come back, disloyal sons. I want to cure your disloyalty. We are here, we are coming to you, for you are Yahweh our God. The hills are a delusion after all, so is the tumult of the mountains. Yahweh our God is, after all, the saving of Israel. Shame has devoured what our ancestors worked for ever since we were young, their flocks and herds, their sons and their daughters. Let us lie down in our shame, let our confusion cover us, for we have sinned against Yahweh our God, we and our ancestors, from our youth until today, and have not listened to the voice of Yahweh our God. Jeremiah, chapter 4. If you come back, Israel, Yahweh declares, if you come back to me, if you take your horrors out of my sight, if you go roving no more, if you swear as Yahweh lives, truthfully, justly, uprightly, then the nations will bless themselves by him and glory in him. For Yahweh says this to the men of Judah and Jerusalem, clear the ground that lies neglected, do not sow among thorns. Circumcise yourselves for Yahweh, apply circumcision to your hearts, men of Judah and inhabitants of Jerusalem, or my wrath will leap out like a fire and burn with no one to quench it, in return for the wickedness of your deeds. Announce it in Judah, proclaim it in Jerusalem, say, sound the trumpet in the countryside, shout the message aloud, mobilize, take to the fortified towns, signpost the way to Zion, run, do not delay, for I am bringing disaster from the north, an immense calamity. The lion is up from his thicket, the destroyer of nations is on his way. He has come from his home to reduce your land to a desert. Your towns will be in ruins, uninhabited. So wrap yourselves in sackcloth, lament and wail, since Yahweh's burning anger has not turned away from us. That day, Yahweh declares, the king's heart will fail him. The princes' hearts will fail them too. The priests will stand aghast, the prophets stupefied. Then I said, Ah, Lord Yahweh, how sadly you deceive this people in Jerusalem when you used to say, You will have peace, whereas the sword is now at our throats. When that time comes, this will be said to this people and to Jerusalem, The scorching wind from the desert heights comes towards the daughter of my people, and not to winnow or to cleanse. A gale of wind comes to me from over there. Now I myself shall pass sentence on them. Look, he is advancing like the clouds, his chariots like a hurricane, his horses swifter than eagles. Disaster for us! We are lost! Wash your heart clean of wickedness, Jerusalem, and so be saved. How long will you go on harboring your pernicious thoughts? For a voice from Dan shouts the news, proclaims disaster from the highlands of Ephraim. Report it to the nations, proclaim it to Jerusalem. Enemies are coming from a distant country, shouting their war cry against the towns of Judah. They surround her like watchmen round a field because she has rebelled against me, Yahweh declares. Your own behavior and actions have brought this on yourself. Your wickedness, how bitter, has stabbed you to the heart. In the pit of my stomach, how great my agony! Walls of my heart is throbbing. I cannot keep quiet, for I have heard the trumpet call, the battle cry. Ruin on ruin is the news. The whole land is laid waste. My tents are suddenly destroyed. In one moment all that sheltered me. How long must I see the standard and hear the trumpet call? This is because my people are stupid. They do not know me. They are slow-witted children. They have no understanding. They are clever enough at doing wrong, but do not know how to do right. I looked to the earth. It was a formless waste. To the heavens, and their light had gone. I looked to the mountains. They were quaking and all the hills rocking to and fro. I looked. There was no one at all. The very birds of heaven had all fled. I looked. The fruitful land was a desert, all its towns in ruins before Yahweh, before his burning anger. Yes, Yahweh has said this. The whole country will be laid waste, though I shall not annihilate it completely. For this, the earth will go into mourning and the heavens above grow dark. For I have spoken, I have decided. I shall not change my mind or go back on it. At the din of horseman and archer, the entire city takes to flight. Some plunge into the thickets, others scale the rocks. Every town is abandoned, not a single person is left there. And once despoiled, what are you going to do? You may dress yourself in scarlet, put on ornaments of gold, enlarge your eyes with paint, but you make yourself pretty in vain. Your former lovers disdain you. Your life is what they are seeking. Yes, I hear screams like those of a woman in labor, anguish like that of a woman giving birth to her first child. They are the screams of the daughter of Zion, gasping, hands outstretched. Unhappy me! I am dying! The murderers have killed me! Jeremiah, chapter 5. Rove the streets of Jerusalem. Now look and inquire. See in her squares if you can find an individual, one individual who does right and seeks the truth, and I will pardon her, Yahweh says. Although they say, as Yahweh lives, they are, in fact, swearing a false oath. Yahweh, do your eyes not look for truth? You have struck them. They have not felt it. You have annihilated them, for they ignored the lesson. They have set their faces harder than rock. They have refused to repent. I thought, these are only the poor. They behave stupidly since they do not know Yahweh's way or the ruling of their God. I shall approach the great men and speak to them, for these will know Yahweh's way and the ruling of their God. But these too have broken the yoke, have burst the bonds. And so, a lion from the forest will slaughter them, a wolf from the plains will despoil them, a leopard will be lurking round their towns. Anyone who goes out will be torn to pieces. Because of their many crimes, their countless infidelities. Why should I pardon you? Your sons have abandoned me, to swear by gods that are not gods at all. I fed them full, and they became adulterers. They hurried to the brothel. They are well-fed, roving stallions, each neighing for his neighbor's wife. Shall I fail to punish this, Yahweh demands, or on such a nation to exact vengeance? Scale her terraces. Destroy, but do not annihilate her completely. Strip off her branches, for Yahweh does not own them. How treacherously they have treated me, the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Yahweh declares. They have denied Yahweh, they have said, He is nothing. No evil will overtake us. We shall not see sword or famine. And the prophets, nothing but wind. The word is not in them. Let those very things happen to them. Because of this, Yahweh, God Sabaoth, says this, Since you have said such things, now I shall make my words a fire in your mouth, and make this people wood, for the fire to devour. Now I shall bring on you a nation from afar, house of Israel, Yahweh declares, an enduring nation, an ancient nation, a nation whose language you do not know, nor can you grasp what they say. Their quiver a gaping tomb. They are all of them fighters. They will devour your harvest and your food, devour your sons and daughters, devour your flocks and herds, devour your vines and fig trees, and demolish your fortified towns in which you trust, with the sword. Yet even in those days, Yahweh declares, I shall not annihilate you completely. And when you ask, Why has Yahweh our God done all this to us? You will give them this answer, As you abandon me to serve alien gods in your own country, so you must serve aliens in a country not your own. Announce this in the house of Jacob, proclaim it in Judah, and say, Now listen to this, stupid, brainless people who have eyes and do not see, who have ears and do not hear. Have you no fear of me? Yahweh demands. Will you not tremble before me who set the sand as limit to the sea, as an everlasting barrier it cannot pass? Its waves may toss but not prevail, they may roar but cannot pass beyond. But this people has a rebellious, unruly heart. They have rebelled and gone. Nor do they say to themselves, Now we ought to fear Yahweh our God who gives the rain, of autumn and of spring, at the right season, and reserves us the weeks appointed for harvest. Your misdeeds have upset all this. Your sins have deprived you of these blessings. Yes, there are wicked men among my people who watch like fowlers on the alert. They set traps and they catch human beings. Like a cage full of birds, so are their houses full of loot. They have grown rich and powerful because of it. They are fat, they are sleek, in wickedness they go to any lengths. They have no respect for rights, for orphans' rights, and yet they succeed. They have not upheld the cause of the needy. Shall I fail to punish this, Yahweh demands, or on such a nation to exact vengeance? Horrible, disgusting things are happening in the land. The prophets prophesy falsely and the priests exploit the people. And my people love it. But when the end comes, what will you do? Jeremiah, chapter 6. Flee in a body, Benjaminites, right away from Jerusalem. Sound the trumpet in Tekoa. Light the beacon on Beth-Hacherem. For disaster lowers from the north, an immense calamity. Beautiful, delicate as she is, I shall destroy the daughter of Zion. Shepherds are advancing on her with their flocks. They have pitched their tents all round her. Each grazes his part. Prepare for holy war against her. To arms! We shall attack at noon. Disaster for us! The light is fading. The evening shadows lengthen. To arms! We shall attack at night and destroy her palaces. For Yahweh Sabaoth says this, Cut down trees, throw up an earthwork outside Jerusalem. This is the city to be punished, with nothing but oppression in her. As a well keeps its water fresh, so she keeps her wickedness fresh. Violence and ruin are what you hear in her. Wounds and blows always forced on my attention. Reform, Jerusalem, or I shall turn my attention away from you and reduce you to a desert, a land without people. Yahweh Sabaoth says this: They will glean what is left of Israel like a vine. Like a grape picker, pass your hand again over the branches. To whom should I speak? Whom warn for them to hear? Look, their ears are uncircumcised. They cannot listen. Look, for them Yahweh's word is something to sneer at. They have no taste for it. So I am full of Yahweh's wrath. I am weary of holding it in. Then pour it on the children in the streets, and on the bands of youths as well. For husband and wife will both be taken, the gray beard and the man weighed down with years. Their houses will pass to other men, so will their fields and wives. Yes, I shall stretch my hand over those living in this country, Yahweh declares. For from the least to greatest, they are all greedy for gain. Prophet no less than priest, all of them practice fraud. Without concern they dress my people's wounds, saying, Peace, peace, whereas there is no peace. They should be ashamed of their loathsome deeds. Not they. They feel no shame. They do not even know how to blush. And so as others fall, they too will fall, will be thrown down when I come and punish them, Yahweh says. Yahweh says this: Stand at the crossroads and look, ask for the ancient paths. Which was the good way? Take it and you will find rest for yourselves. But they have said, We will not take it. I posted lookouts on your behalf. Listen to the sound of the trumpet. But they said, We will not listen. Then hear, you nations, and know, assembly, what is going to happen to them. Listen, earth. Watch, I shall bring disaster on this people. It is the fruit of the way they think, since they have not listened to my words nor to my law, but have rejected it. What do I care about incense imported from Sheba, or fragrant cane from a distant country? Your burnt offerings are not acceptable. Your sacrifices do not please me. And so, Yahweh says this: In front of this people I shall now lay obstacles for them to stumble over. Father and son alike, neighbor and friend will perish. Yahweh says this: Look, a people is coming from the land of the north. From the far ends of the earth a great nation is rising. They are armed with bow and spear. They are cruel and pitiless. Their noise is like the roaring of the sea. They are riding horses. They are ready to fight against you as one man, against you, daughter of Zion. We have heard the news. Our hands fall limp. Anguish has gripped us. Pain like that of a woman in labor. Do not go out into the countryside. Do not venture onto the roads. For the enemy's sword is there. Terror on every side. Put on sackcloth, daughter of my people. Roll in ashes. Mourn as for an only son, a very bitter dirge. For on us suddenly the destroyer is coming. I have appointed you as tester of my people, to learn and to test how they behave. All of them are total rebels, peddlers of slander, hard as bronze and iron, all agents of corruption. The bellows blast away to make the fire burn away the lead. In vain the smelter does his work, for the dross is not purged out. Silver reject, men call them, and indeed Yahweh has rejected them. Jeremiah, chapter 7. The word that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh, saying, Stand at the gate of the temple of Yahweh, and there proclaim this message. Say, Listen to the word of Yahweh, all you of Judah who come in by these gates to worship Yahweh. Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this: Amend your behavior and your actions, and I will let you stay in this place. Do not put your faith in delusive words, such as, This is Yahweh's sanctuary, Yahweh's sanctuary, Yahweh's sanctuary. But if you really amend your behavior and your actions, if you really treat one another fairly, if you do not exploit the stranger, the orphan and the widow, if you do not shed innocent blood in this place, and if you do not follow other gods to your own ruin, then I shall let you stay in this place, in the country I gave forever to your ancestors of old. Look, you are putting your faith in delusive, worthless words. Steal, would you, murder, commit adultery, perjure yourselves, burn incense to Baal, follow other gods of whom you know nothing? And then come and stand before me in this temple that bears my name, saying, now we are safe to go on doing all these loathsome things. Do you look on this temple that bears my name as a den of bandits? I at any rate can see straight, Yahweh declares. Now go to the place which used to be mine at Shiloh, where I once gave my name a home. See what I have done to it because of the wickedness of my people Israel. And now, since you have done all these things, Yahweh declares, and refused to listen when I spoke so urgently, so persistently, or to answer when I called you, I shall treat this temple that bears my name, and in which you put your heart, the place that I gave you and your ancestors, just as I treated Shiloh, and I shall drive you out of my sight, as I did all your kinsfolk, the whole race of Ephraim. You, for your part, must not intercede for this people, nor raise either plea or prayer on their behalf. Do not plead with me, for I will not listen to you. Can you not see what they are doing in the towns of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem? The children collect the wood, the fathers light the fire, the women knead the dough, to make cakes for the Queen of Heaven. And to spite me, they pour libations to alien gods. Is it really me they spite? Yahweh demands. Is it not in fact themselves to their own confusion? So, Lord Yahweh says this, my anger, my wrath will be poured down on this place, on man and beast, on the trees of the countryside and the fruits of the soil. It will burn and not be quenched. Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this, add your burnt offerings to your sacrifices and eat all the meat. For when I brought your ancestors out of Egypt, I said nothing to them, gave them no orders, about burnt offerings or sacrifices. My one command to them was this, listen to my voice, then I will be your God and you shall be my people. In everything, follow the way that I mark out for you, and you shall prosper. But they did not listen, they did not pay attention. They followed their own devices, their own stubborn and wicked inclinations, and got worse rather than better. From the day your ancestors left Egypt until today, I have sent you all my servants the prophets, persistently sending them day after day. But they have not listened to me, have not paid attention. They have deliberately resisted, behaving worse than their ancestors. So you will tell them all this, but they will not listen to you. You will call them, but they will not answer you. Then you are to say to them, this is the nation that will neither listen to the voice of Yahweh its God nor take correction. Sincerity is no more. It has vanished from their mouths. Cut off your tresses. Throw them away. On the bare heights raise a dirge. For Yahweh has rejected, has abandoned, a brood that enrages him. Yes, the people of Judah have done what displeases me, Yahweh declares. They have set up their horrors in the temple that bears my name, to defile it, and have built the high places of Topheth in the valley of Ben Hinnom, to burn their sons and daughters, a thing I never ordered, that had never entered my thoughts. So now the days are coming, Yahweh declares, when people will no longer say Topheth or valley of Ben Hinnom, but valley of slaughter. Topheth will become a burial ground, for lack of other space. The corpses of this people will be food for the birds of the sky and the animals of earth, and there will be no one to drive them off. I shall silence the shouts of rejoicing and mirth and the voices of bridegroom and bride, in the towns of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem, for the country will be reduced to desert. Jeremiah, chapter 8. When that time comes, Yahweh declares, the bones of the kings of Judah, the bones of its chief men, the bones of the priests, the bones of the prophets and the bones of the inhabitants of Jerusalem, will be taken from their tombs. They will be spread out before the sun, the moon, the whole array of heaven, whom they have loved and served, followed, consulted and worshipped. They will not be gathered or reburied, but will be left lying on the surface like dung. And death will seem preferable to life to all the survivors of this wicked race. Wherever I have driven them, Yahweh Sabaoth declares. You are to tell them, Yahweh says this, if someone falls, can he not stand up again? If people stray, can they not turn back? Why does this people persist in acts of infidelity? Why does Jerusalem persist in continuous infidelity? They cling to illusion. They refuse to turn back. I have listened attentively. They have never said anything like that. Not one repents of wickedness, saying, "What have I done?" Each one keeps returning to the course like a horse charging into battle. Even the stork in the sky knows the appropriate season. Turtle dove, swallow and crane observe their time of migration. But my people do not know Yahweh's laws. How can you say, "We are wise," since we have Yahweh's law? Look how it has been falsified by the lying pen of the scribes. The wise are put to shame, alarmed, caught out because they have rejected Yahweh's word. What price their wisdom now? So I shall give their wives to other men, their fields to new masters. For from the least to greatest, they are all greedy for gain. Prophet no less than priest, all of them practice fraud. Without concern they dress the wound of the daughter of my people, saying, "Peace, peace," whereas there is no peace. They should be ashamed of their loathsome deeds. Not they. They feel no shame. They do not even know how to blush. And so as others fall, they too will fall, will be thrown down when the time for punishing them comes, Yahweh says. I shall put an end to them, Yahweh declares. No more grapes on the vine, no more figs on the fig tree, only withered leaves. I have found them people to trample on them. Why are we sitting still? Mobilize. Take to the fortified towns and there fall silent. Since Yahweh our God means to silence us by giving us poisoned water to drink because we have sinned against him. We are hoping for peace. No good came of it. For the time of healing, nothing but terror. From Dan you can hear the snorting of his horses. At the neighing of his stallions the whole country quakes. They are coming to devour the country and its contents, the town and those that live in it. Yes, now I am sending you poisonous snakes against which no charm exists, and they will bite you, Yahweh declares. Incurable sorrow overtakes me. My heart fails me. Hark, from the daughter of my people the cry for help, ringing far and wide throughout the land. Is Yahweh no longer in Zion, her king no longer there? Why have they provoked me with their idols, with their futile foreign gods? Harvest is over, summer at an end, and we have not been saved. The wound of the daughter of my people wounds me too. All looks dark to me, terror grips me. Is there no balm in Gilead any more? Is no doctor there? Then why is there no progress in the cure of the daughter of my people? Who will turn my head into a fountain, and my eyes into a spring of tears, that I can weep day and night over the slain of the daughter of my people? Jeremiah, chapter 9. Who will find me a wayfarer's shelter in the desert, for me to quit my people, and leave them far behind? For all of them are adulterers, a conspiracy of traitors. They bend their tongues like a bow. Not truth but falsehood hold sway in the land. Yes, they go from crime to crime, but me they do not know, Yahweh declares. Let each be on his guard against his friend. Do not trust a brother, for every brother aims but to supplant, and every friend is a peddler of slander. Each one cheats his friend, never telling the truth. They have trained their tongues to lie and devote all their energies to doing wrong. You live in a world of bad faith. Out of bad faith, they refuse to know me, Yahweh declares. And so, Yahweh Sabaoth declares, now I shall purge them and test them. No other way to treat the daughter of my people. Their tongue is a deadly arrow. Their words are in bad faith. With his mouth each wishes his neighbor peace, while in his heart plotting a trap for him. Shall I fail to punish them for this, Yahweh demands, or on such a nation fail to exact vengeance? I raise the wail and lament for the mountains, the dirge for the desert pastures, for they have been burnt. No one passes there, the sound of flocks is heard no more. Birds of the sky and animals, all have fled, all are gone. I shall make Jerusalem a heap of ruins, a lair for jackals. and the towns of Judah an uninhabited wasteland. Who is wise enough to understand this? To whom has Yahweh's mouth spoken to explain it? Why is the country annihilated, burnt like the desert where no one passes? Yahweh says, "This is because they have forsaken my law which I gave them, and have not listened to my voice or followed it, but have followed their own stubborn hearts, have followed the Baals as their ancestors taught them." So Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this, "Now I shall give this people wormwood to eat and poison water to drink. I shall scatter them among nations unknown to their ancestors or to them, and I shall pursue them with the sword until I have annihilated them." Yahweh Sabaoth says this, "Prepare to call for the mourning women. Send for those who are best at it. Let them lose no time in raising the lament over us. Let our eyes rain tears, our eyelids run with weeping. A lament makes itself heard in Zion. What ruin is ours? What utter shame! For we must leave the country. Our homes have been knocked down. Now listen, you women, to Yahweh's word. Let your ears take in the word his own mouth speaks. Teach your daughters how to wail and teach one another this dirge. Death has climbed in at our windows and made its way into our palaces. It has cut down the children in the street, the young people in the squares speak. Yahweh declares this, "Human corpses are strewn like dung in the open field, like sheaves left by the reaper, with no one to gather them." Yahweh says this, "Let the sage not boast of wisdom, nor the valiant of valor, nor the wealthy of riches. But let anyone who wants to boast, boast of this, of understanding and knowing me. For I am Yahweh, who acts with faithful love, justice, and uprightness on earth. Yes, these are what please me," Yahweh declares. "Look, the days are coming," Yahweh declares, "when I shall punish all who are circumcised only in the flesh: Egypt, Judah, Edom, the Ammonites, Moab, and all the men with shaven temples who live in the desert. For all those nations, and the whole house of Israel too, are uncircumcised at heart." Jeremiah, chapter 10. Listen, house of Israel, to the word that Yahweh addresses to you. Yahweh says this, "Do not learn the ways of the nations or take alarm at the heavenly signs, alarmed though the nations may be at them. Yes, the customs of the peoples are quite futile. Wood, nothing more, cut out of a forest, worked with a blade by a carver's hand, then embellished with silver and gold, then fastened with hammer and nails to keep it from moving. Like scarecrows in a melon patch, they cannot talk, they have to be carried, since they cannot walk. Have no fear of them, they can do no harm, nor any good either. Yahweh, there is no one like you, so great you are, so great your mighty name. Who would not revere you, King of nations? Yes, this is your due. Since of all the wise among the nations, and in all their kingdoms, there is not a single one like you. All of them are brutish and stupid. The futile one's teaching is but wood, silver leaf imported from Tarshish and gold from Ophir, the work of carver or goldsmith, then dressed up in violet and purple, all the work of skilled men. But Yahweh is the true God. He is the living God, the everlasting King. The earth quakes when he is wrathful. The nations cannot endure his fury. Tell them this, the gods who did not make the heavens and the earth will vanish from the earth and from under these heavens. By his power he made the earth. By his wisdom set the world firm. But his discernment spread out the heavens. When he thunders there is a roaring of waters in heaven. He raises clouds from the remotest parts of the earth, makes the lightning flash for the downpour, and brings the wind from his storehouse. At this all people stand stupefied, uncomprehending. Every goldsmith blushes for his idols. His castings are but delusion, with no breath in them. They are futile, a laughable production. When the time comes for them to be punished, they will vanish. The heritage of Jacob is not like these, for he is the maker of everything, and Israel is the tribe that is his heritage. His name is Yahweh Sabaoth. Pick up your pack from the ground, you the besieged. For Yahweh says this, Now I shall throw out the inhabitants of the country, this time, and bring distress on them, so that they may find me. Disaster is on me. What a wound! My injury is incurable. And I used to think, if this is the worst, I can bear it. But now my tent is destroyed, all my ropes are snapped, my sons have left me and are no more. No one is left to put my tent up again or to hang the side cloths. The shepherds are the ones who have been stupid. They have not searched for Yahweh. This is why they have not prospered and why their whole flock has been dispersed. Listen! A terrible noise! A mighty uproar from the land of the north to reduce the towns of Judah to desert, to a lair for jackals. I know Yahweh. No one's course is in his control, nor is it in anyone's power, as he goes his way, to guide his own steps. Correct me, Yahweh, but with moderation, not in your anger, or you will reduce me to nothing. Pour out your anger on the nations who do not acknowledge you, and on the families that do not call on your name, for they have devoured Jacob, have devoured and made an end of him and reduced his home to desolation. Jeremiah, chapter 11. The word that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh. Hear the terms of this covenant. Tell them to the people of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Tell them, Yahweh, God of Israel, says this, Cursed be anyone who will not listen to the terms of this covenant which I ordained for your ancestors when I brought them out of Egypt, out of that iron foundry. Listen to my voice, I told them, carry out all my orders. Then you will be my people and I shall be your God, so that I may fulfill the oath I swore to your ancestors, that I may give them a country flowing with milk and honey, as is the case today. I replied, So be it, Yahweh. Then Yahweh said to me, Proclaim all these terms in the towns of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, saying, Listen to the terms of this covenant and obey them. For when I brought your ancestors out of Egypt, I solemnly warned them, and have persistently warned them until today, saying, Listen to my voice. But they did not listen, did not pay attention. Instead, each followed his own stubborn and wicked inclinations, and against them, in consequence, I put into action the words of this covenant which I had ordered them to obey and which they had not obeyed. Yahweh said to me, Plainly there is conspiracy among the people of Judah and the citizens of Jerusalem. They have reverted to the sins of their ancestors who refused to listen to my words. They too are following other gods and serving them. The house of Israel and the house of Judah have broken my covenant which I made with their ancestors. And so, Yahweh says this, I shall now bring a disaster on them which they cannot escape. They will call to me for help, but I shall not listen to them. The towns of Judah and the citizens of Jerusalem will then go and call for help to the gods to whom they burn incense. But these will be no help at all to them in their time of distress. For you have as many gods as you have towns, Judah. You have built as many altars to shame, as many incense altars to Baal, as Jerusalem has streets. You, for your part, must not intercede for this people, nor raise either plea or prayer on their behalf. For I will not listen when their distress forces them to call to me for help. What is my beloved doing in my house? She has achieved her wicked plans. Can vows and consecrated meat turn disaster from you for you to be so happy? Green olive tree covered in fine fruit was Yahweh's name for you. With a shattering noise he has set fire to it. Its branches are broken. And Yahweh Sabaoth, who planted you, has decreed disaster for you because of the evil the house of Israel and the house of Judah have done, provoking me by burning incense to Baal. Yahweh informed me and I knew it. You then revealed their scheming to me. I for my part was like a trustful lamb being led to the slaughterhouse, not knowing the schemes they were plotting against me. Let us destroy the tree in its strength. Let us cut him off from the land of the living, so that his name may no longer be remembered. Yahweh Sabaoth, whose judgment is upright, tester of motives and thoughts, I shall see your vengeance on them, for I have revealed my cause to you. Against the people of Anathoth who are determined to kill me and say to me, Do not prophesy in the name of Yahweh, or you will die at our hands. Yahweh says this, I am about to punish them. Their young people will die by the sword, their sons and daughters by famine. Not one will be left when I bring disaster on the people of Anathoth, when the year for punishing them comes. Jeremiah, chapter 12. Your uprightness is too great, Yahweh, for me to dispute with you, but I should like to discuss some points of justice with you. Why is it that the way of the wicked prospers? Why do all treacherous people thrive? You plant them, they take root, they flourish, yes, and bear fruit. You are on their lips, yet far from their heart. You know me, Yahweh, you see me, you probe my heart, which is close to yours. Drag them off like sheep for the slaughterhouse. Reserve them for the day of butchery. How long will the land be in mourning, and the grass wither all over the countryside? The animals and birds are dying as a result of the wickedness of the inhabitants. For they say, God does not see our fate. If you find it exhausting to race against me on foot, how will you compete against horses? In a country at peace you feel secure, but how will you fare in the thickets of the Jordan? For even your brothers and your own family will betray you. They will pursue you in full cry. Put no faith in them when they speak you fair. I have abandoned my house, left my heritage. I have delivered what I dearly loved into the clutches of its enemies. To me, my heritage has behaved like a lion in the forest. It roared at me ferociously, so I now hate it. I see my heritage as a brightly colored bird of prey attacked by birds of prey on every side. Go, assemble all the wild animals. Make them come and dine. Many shepherds have laid my vineyard waste, have trampled over my plot of land, the plot of land which was my joy, reducing my favorite estate to a deserted wilderness. They have made it a waste. Wasted, it mourns before me. The whole country has been devastated, and no one takes it to heart. The devastators have arrived on all the bare heights of the desert, for Yahweh wields a devouring sword. From one end of the country to the other, there is no peace for any living thing. Wheat they have sown, thorns they reap. They have worn themselves out, to no profit. They are disappointed in their harvests, because of Yahweh's burning anger. Yahweh says this, as regards all my evil neighbors who have laid hands on the heritage I granted my people Israel. Look, I shall uproot them from their soil, though I shall uproot the house of Judah from among them. But having uprooted them, I shall take pity on them again and bring them back each to its own heritage, each to its own country. And if they carefully learn my people's ways and swear by my name, as Yahweh lives, as they have taught my people to swear by Baal, then they will be re-established among my people. But if any nation refuses to listen, I shall uproot it forever and destroy it, Yahweh declares. Jeremiah, chapter 13. Yahweh said this to me, Go and buy a linen waistcloth and put it round your waist, but do not dip it in water. And so, as Yahweh had ordered, I bought a waistcloth and put it round my waist. A second time the word of Yahweh came to me, Take the waistcloth that you have bought and are wearing round your waist. Up, go to the Euphrates and hide it there in a hole in the rock. So I went and hid it by the Euphrates as Yahweh had ordered me. A long time later Yahweh said to me, Up, go to the Euphrates and fetch the waistcloth I ordered you to hide there. So I went to the Euphrates, and I searched, and I took the waistcloth from the place where I had hidden it. And there was the waistcloth ruined, no use for anything. Then the word of Yahweh was addressed to me as follows. Yahweh says this, In the same way I shall ruin the pride of Judah, the immense pride of Jerusalem. This evil people, these people who refuse to listen to my words, who follow their own stubborn inclinations and run after other gods, serving and worshiping them, this people will become like this waistcloth, no good for anything. For just as a waistcloth clings to a man's waist, so I made the whole house of Israel and the whole house of Judah cling to me, Yahweh declares, to be my people, my glory, my honor, and my pride. But they have not listened. You will also say this to them, Yahweh, God of Israel, says this, any jug can be filled with wine. And if they answer you, do you think we do not know that any jug can be filled with wine? You are to say, Yahweh says this, look, I shall fill all the inhabitants of this country, the kings who occupy the throne of David, the priests, the prophets, and all the citizens of Jerusalem, with drunkenness. Then I shall smash them one against the other, parents and children all together. Yahweh declares, mercilessly, relentlessly, pitilessly, I shall destroy them. Listen and pay attention. Do not be proud. Yahweh is speaking. Give glory to Yahweh your God before the darkness comes, before your feet stumble on the darkened mountains. You hope for light, but he will turn it to shadow dark as death, will change it to blackness. If you do not listen to this warning, I shall weep in secret for your pride. My eyes will weep bitterly and stream with tears, for Yahweh's flock is being led into captivity. Tell the king and the queen mother, sit in a lower place, since your glorious crown has fallen from your head. The towns of the Negeb are shut off with no one to give access to them. All Judah has been deported wholesale. Raise your eyes and look at these now coming from the north. Where is the flock once entrusted to you, the flock which was your pride? What will you say when they come and punish you, you yourself having taught them? Against you, in the lead, will come your friends. Then will not anguish grip you as it grips a woman in labor? And should you ask yourself, why is all this happening to me? It is because of your great guilt that your skirts have been pulled up and you have been manhandled. Can the Ethiopian change his skin, or the leopard his spots? And you, can you do right, being so accustomed to wrong? I shall scatter you like chaff on the desert wind. This is your share, the part allotted you from me, Yahweh declares, because you have forgotten me and put your trust in delusion. I am the one who pulls your skirts up over your face to let your shame be seen. Oh, your adulteries, your shrieks of pleasure, your vile prostitution. On the hills, in the fields, I have seen your horrors. Jerusalem, disaster is coming for you. How much longer till you are made clean? Jeremiah, chapter 14. The word of Yahweh that came to Jeremiah on the occasion of the drought. Judah is in mourning, her towns are pining, sinking to the ground. A cry goes up from Jerusalem. The nobles send their servants for water. They come to the water tanks, find no water, and return with their pitchers empty. Dismayed and bewildered, they cover their heads. Because the soil is all cracked since the country has had no rain, the farmers are dismayed, they cover their heads. Even the doe in the countryside giving birth abandons her young, for there is no grass. The wild donkeys standing on the bare heights gasp for air like jackals. Their eyes grow dim for lack of pasture. Although our sins witness against us, Yahweh, for your name's sake, intervene. Yes, our acts of infidelity have been many. We have sinned against you. Yahweh, hope of Israel, its Savior in time of distress. Why are you like a stranger in this country, like a traveler staying only for one night? Why are you like someone bemused, like a warrior who has no power to rescue? And yet, Yahweh, you are among us. We are called by your name. Do not desert us. Yahweh says this about this people: they take such pleasure in darting hither and thither, they cannot restrain their feet. But Yahweh takes pleasure in them no longer. Now he will keep their guilt in mind and punish their sins. Yahweh then said to me, do not intercede for this people or their welfare. If they fast, I will not listen to their plea. If they offer burnt offerings and cereal offerings, I will not accept them. Rather, I shall make an end of them by sword, famine, and plague. Ah, Lord Yahweh, I answered. Here are the prophets telling them, you will not see the sword, famine will not touch you. I promise you true peace in this place. Then Yahweh said to me, The prophets are prophesying lies in my name. I have not sent them, I gave them no orders, I never spoke to them. Delusive visions, hollow predictions, daydreams of their own, that is what they prophesy to you. Therefore Yahweh says this, the prophets who prophesy in my name when I have not sent them, and tell you there will be no sword or famine in this country, these same prophets will meet their end by sword and famine. And as for the people to whom they prophesy, they will be tossed into the streets of Jerusalem, victims of famine and the sword, with not a soul to bury them, neither them nor their wives, nor their sons, nor their daughters. I shall pour their own wickedness down on them. So say this word to them, may my eyes shed tears night and day, unceasingly, since the daughter of my people has sustained a fearsome wound, a crippling injury. If I go into the countryside, there lie those killed by the sword. If I go into the city, I see people tortured with hunger. Even prophets and priests roam the country at their wits' end. Have you rejected Judah altogether? Does your very soul revolt at Zion? Why have you struck us down without hope of cure? We were hoping for peace. No good came of it. For the moment of cure, nothing but terror. Yahweh, we acknowledge our wickedness and our ancestors' guilt. We have indeed sinned against you. For your name's sake do not reject us. Do not dishonor the throne of your glory. Remember us. Do not break your covenant with us. Can any of the nation's feudal ones make it rain? Can the heavens of their own accord give showers? Are you not the one, Yahweh our God? In you is our hope, since you make all these things. Jeremiah, chapter 15. Yahweh said to me, even if Moses and Samuel pleaded before me, I could not sympathize with this people. Drive them out of my sight. Away with them. And if they ask you, where shall we go? Tell them this, Yahweh says this, those for the plague to the plague, those for the sword to the sword, those for famine to famine, those for captivity to captivity. I shall consign them to 4 kinds of thing, Yahweh declares. The sword to kill, the dogs to drag away, the birds of heaven and wild animals of earth to devour and to destroy. I shall make them an object of horror to all the kingdoms of the earth, because of Manasseh son of Hezekiah, king of Judah, and what he did in Jerusalem. Who is there to pity you, Jerusalem? Who to grieve for you? Who to go out of his way and ask how you are? You yourself have rejected me, Yahweh declares. You have turned your back on me. So I have stretched my hand over you and destroyed you. Tired of relenting, I have winnowed them with a winnow at the country's gates. They have been bereft. I have destroyed my people, but they refuse to leave their ways. I have made their widows outnumber the sand of the sea. On the mother of young warriors I bring the destroyer in broad daylight. Suddenly I bring anguish and terror down on her. The mother of 7 sons grows faint and gasps for breath. It is still day, but already her sun has set. She is dismayed and distracted. And the rest of them I shall consign to the sword, to their enemies, Yahweh declares. A disaster for me, mother, that you bore me to be a man of strife and dissension for the whole country. I neither lend nor borrow, yet all of them curse me. Have I not genuinely done my best to serve you, Yahweh? Have I not interceded with you in time of disaster and distress? Can iron break the iron of the north and the bronze? Your wealth and your treasures I shall hand over to plunder, without repayment, because of all your sins, throughout your territory. I shall enslave you to your enemies in a country which you do not know. For my anger has kindled a fire that will burn you up. Yahweh, you know, remember me, take care of me, and avenge me on my persecutors. However long your anger endures, do not snatch me away. Realize that I suffer insult for your sake. When your words came, I devoured them. Your word was my delight and the joy of my heart. For I was called by your name, Yahweh, God Sabaoth. I never sat in the company of scoffers amusing myself. With your hands on me I held myself aloof, since you had filled me with indignation? Why is my suffering continual, my wound incurable, refusing to be healed? Truly, for me you are a deceptive stream with uncertain waters. To which Yahweh replied, If you repent, I shall restore you to plead before me. If you distinguish between the precious and the base, you shall be as my own mouth. They will come back to you, but you must not go back to them. As far as these people are concerned, I shall make you a fortified wall of bronze. They will fight against you but will not overcome you, because I am with you to save you and rescue you, Yahweh declares. I shall rescue you from the clutches of the wicked and redeem you from the grasp of the violent. Jeremiah, chapter 16. The word of Yahweh was addressed to me as follows. You are not to marry or have sons and daughters in this place. For Yahweh says this regarding the sons and daughters to be born in this place, about the mothers who give birth to them, and about the fathers who beget them in this land. They will die of deadly diseases, unlamented and unburied. They will be like dung spread on the ground. They will meet their end by sword and famine, and their corpses will be food for the birds of the sky and the beasts of earth. Yes, Yahweh says this, Go into no house where there is mourning, do not go and lament or grieve with them. For I have withdrawn my peace from this people, Yahweh declares, and faithful love and pity too. High or low, they will die in this country, without burial or lament. There will be no gashing, no shaving of the head for them. No bread will be broken for the mourner to comfort him for the dead. No cup of consolation will be offered him for his father or his mother. And do not enter a house where there is feasting, to sit with them and eat and drink. For Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this, In this place, before your eyes, in your own days, I will silence the shouts of rejoicing and mirth and the voices of bridegroom and bride. When you tell these people this and they ask you, Why has Yahweh decreed such complete and total disaster for us? What have we done wrong? What sin have we committed against Yahweh our God? Then you are to answer, It is because your ancestors abandoned me, Yahweh declares, and followed other gods, and served and worshipped them. They abandoned me and did not keep my law. And you for your part have behaved even worse than your ancestors. Look, each of you follows his own stubborn and wicked inclinations, without listening to me. And so, I shall eject you from this country into a country unknown to you or to your ancestors. And there you can serve other gods, day and night, for I shall show you no more favor. Look, the days are coming, Yahweh declares, when people will no longer say, As Yahweh lives who brought the Israelites out of Egypt, but, As Yahweh lives who brought the Israelites back from the land of the north and all the countries to which he had driven them. I shall bring them back to the very soil I gave their ancestors. Watch, I shall send for many fishermen, Yahweh declares, and these will fish them up. Next, I shall send for many huntsmen, and these will hunt them out of every mountain, every hill, and out of the holes in the rocks. For my eyes watch all their ways. These are not hidden from me, and their guilt does not escape my gaze. I shall requite their guilt and their sin twice over, since they have polluted my country with the carcasses of their horrors, and filled my heritage with their abominations. Yahweh, my strength, my stronghold, my refuge in time of distress. To you the nations will come from the remotest parts of the earth and say, Our fathers inherited nothing but delusion, futility of no use whatever. Can human beings make their own gods? These are not gods at all. Now listen, I will make them acknowledge. This time I will make them acknowledge my hand and my might, and then they will know that Yahweh is my name. Jeremiah, chapter 17. The sin of Judah is written with an iron pen, engraved with a diamond point on the tablet of the heart and on the horns of their altars, while their children remember their altars and their sacred pole beside the green trees, on the lofty hills. My mountain on the plain, your wealth and all your treasures I shall hand over to be plundered, because of the sin of your high places throughout your territory. You will have to relinquish your heritage which I gave you. I will enslave you to your enemies in a country which you do not know, for my fiery anger kindled by you will burn forever. Yahweh says this, Accursed be anyone who trusts in human beings, who relies on human strength and whose heart turns from Yahweh. Such a person is like scrub in the wastelands. When good comes, it does not affect him since he lives in the parched places of the desert, uninhabited, salt land. Blessed is anyone who trusts in Yahweh, with Yahweh to rely on. Such a person is like a tree by the waterside that thrusts its roots to the stream. When the heat comes, it has nothing to fear, its foliage stays green. Untroubled in a year of drought, it never stops bearing fruit. The heart is more devious than any other thing, and is depraved. Who can pierce its secrets? I, Yahweh, search the heart, test the motives, to give each person what his conduct and his actions deserve. The partridge will hatch eggs it has not laid. No different is the person who gets riches unjustly. His days half done, they will desert him and he prove a fool after all. A glorious throne, sublime from the beginning. Such is our holy place. Yahweh, hope of Israel, all who abandon you will be put to shame. Those who turn from you will be registered in the underworld, since they have abandoned Yahweh, the fountain of living water. Heal me, Yahweh, and I shall be healed. Save me, and I shall be saved, for you are my praise. Look, they keep saying to me, Where is Yahweh's word? Let it come true then. Yet I have never urged you to send disaster. I never desired the fatal day. This you know. What came from my lips was not concealed from you. Do not be a terror to me, you, my refuge in time of disaster. Let my persecutors be confounded. Not me, let them, not me, be terrified. On them bring the day of disaster. Destroy them twice over. Yahweh said this to me, Go and stand at the gate of the sons of the people by which the kings of Judah go in and out, and at all the gates of Jerusalem. Say to them, Listen to the word of Yahweh, you kings of Judah, all you people of Judah too, and all you inhabitants of Jerusalem who pass through the gates. Yahweh says this, As you value your lives, on no account carry a burden on the Sabbath day or bring it in through the gates of Jerusalem. Bring no burden out of your houses on the Sabbath day, and do no work. Keep the Sabbath day holy, as I ordered your ancestors. They would not hear, would not pay attention. They deliberately refused to listen or accept instruction. But if you listen carefully to me, Yahweh declares, and bring no burden in through the gates of this city on the Sabbath day, if you keep the Sabbath holy and do no work on that day, then, through the gates of this city, kings and princes occupying the throne of David will continue to make their entry, riding in chariots or on horseback, they, their chief men, the people of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And this city will be inhabited forever. They will come from the towns of Judah, from the districts round Jerusalem, from the territory of Benjamin, from the lowlands, from the highlands, from the Negeb, to offer burnt offering and sacrifice, and cereal offering and incense, to offer thanksgiving sacrifices in the temple of Yahweh. But if you do not listen to me to keep the Sabbath day holy, and to refrain from entering the gates of Jerusalem with burdens on the Sabbath day, then I shall set fire to its gates. Fire will devour the palaces of Jerusalem and not be quenched. Jeremiah, chapter 18. The word that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh as follows, Get up and make your way down to the potter's house, and there I shall tell you what I have to say. So I went down to the potter's house, and there he was, working at the wheel. But the vessel he was making came out wrong, as may happen with clay when a potter is at work. So he began again and shaped it into another vessel, as he thought fit. Then the word of Yahweh came to me as follows, House of Israel, can I not do to you what this potter does? Yahweh demands. Yes, like clay in the potter's hand. So you are in mine, House of Israel. Sometimes I announce that I shall uproot, break down and destroy a certain nation or kingdom. But should the nation I have threatened abandon its wickedness, I then change my mind about the disaster which I had intended to inflict on it. Sometimes I announce that I shall build up and plant a certain nation or kingdom, but should that nation do what displeases me and refuse to listen to my voice, I then change my mind about the good which I was intending to confer on it. So now, say this to the people of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Yahweh says this: Listen, I am preparing a disaster for you. I am working out a plan against you. So now, each one of you, turn back from your evil ways. Amend your conduct and actions. They, however, will say, It is no use. We shall follow our own plans. Each of us will act on his own wicked inclinations. Therefore, Yahweh says this: Ask, please, among the nations if anyone has heard anything like this. The Virgin of Israel has done a very horrible thing. Does the snow of Lebanon ever leave the rocks of its slopes? Do the rivers of foreign lands, their cold flowing waters, ever run dry? And yet my people have forgotten me. They burn incense to a nothing. They have been made to stumble in their ways, the ancient paths, to walk in paths, on an unmade road, to make their country an object of horror, everlastingly derided. Every passerby will be appalled at it and shake his head. Like the east wind, I shall scatter them before the enemy. I shall show them my back, not my face, the day they are ruined. Come on, they said, let us concoct a plot against Jeremiah. For the law will not perish for lack of priests, nor advice for lack of wise men, nor the word for lack of prophets. Come on, let us slander him and pay no attention to anything he says. Pay attention to me, Yahweh. Hear what my adversaries are saying. Should evil be returned for good? Now they are digging a pit for me. Remember how I pleaded before you and spoke good of them, to turn your retribution away from them. So, hand their sons over to famine, abandon them to the edge of the sword. Let their wives become childless and widowed. Let their husbands die of plague, their young men be cut down by the sword in battle. Let cries re-echo from their houses as you bring raiders suddenly on them. For they have dug a pit to catch me, they have laid snares to trap my feet. But you, Yahweh, know all about their murderous plot against me. Do not forgive their guilt. Do not efface their sin from your sight. Let them be hurled down before you. Deal with them while you are angry. Jeremiah, chapter 19. Then Yahweh said to Jeremiah, Go and buy a potter's earthenware jug. Take some of the people's elders and some of the senior priests with you. Go out towards the valley of Ben Hinnom, just outside the gate of the potsherds. There proclaim the words I shall say to you. You must say, Kings of Judah, inhabitants of Jerusalem, listen to the word of Yahweh. Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this: I am about to bring such a disaster on this place that the ears of every one who hears of it will ring. For they have abandoned me and have made this place unrecognizable, and offered incense here to other gods which neither they nor their ancestors nor the kings of Judah ever knew before. They have filled this place with the blood of the innocent. For they have built high places for Baal to burn their sons as burnt offerings to Baal, a thing I never ordered, never mentioned, that had never entered my thoughts. So now the days are coming, Yahweh declares, when people will no longer call this place Topheth, or Valley of Ben Hinnom, but Valley of Slaughter. Because of this place, I shall empty Judah and Jerusalem of sound advice. I shall make them fall by the sword before their enemies, by the hand of those determined to kill them. I shall give their corpses as food to the birds of the sky and the animals of earth. And I shall make this city an object of horror and derision. Every passerby will be appalled at it and whistle at the sight of all the wounds it has sustained. I shall make them eat the flesh of their own sons and daughters. They will eat one another during the siege, in the shortage to which their enemies, and those determined to kill them, will reduce them. You must break this jug in front of the men who are with you, and say to them, Yahweh Sabaoth says this: I am going to break this people and this city just as one breaks a potter's pot, so that it can never be mended again. Topheth will become a burial ground. for lack of other burial space. That is how I shall treat this place, Yahweh declares, and its inhabitants, by making this city like Topheth, the houses of Jerusalem and those of the kings of Judah, all the houses on the roofs of which they offered incense to the whole array of heaven and poured libations to other gods, will be unclean, like this place Topheth. Jeremiah then came back from Topheth where Yahweh had sent him to prophesy, and stood in the court of the temple of Yahweh and said to all the people, Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this, yes, on this city, and on all the towns belonging to it, I shall bring all the disaster which I had decreed for it, since they have stubbornly refused to listen to my words. Jeremiah, chapter 20. Now the priest Pashur son of Immer, who was the chief of police in the temple of Yahweh, heard Jeremiah making this prophecy. Pashur struck the prophet Jeremiah and then put him in the stocks, in the upper Benjamin gate leading into the temple of Yahweh. Next day, Pashur had Jeremiah taken out of the stocks. Jeremiah then said to him, Not Pashur but terror on every side is Yahweh's name for you. For Yahweh says this, I am going to hand you over to terror, you and all your friends. They will fall by the sword of their enemies. Your own eyes will see it. The whole of Judah, too, I shall hand over to the king of Babylon. He will carry them off captive to Babylon and put them to the sword. And all the wealth of this city, all its stores, all its valuables, all the treasures of the kings of Judah, I shall hand over to their enemies who will plunder them, round them up and carry them off to Babylon. As for you, Pashur and your whole household, you will go into captivity. You will go to Babylon. There you will die, and there be buried, you and all your friends to whom you have prophesied lies. You have seduced me, Yahweh, and I have let myself be seduced. You have overpowered me. You were the stronger. I am a laughingstock all day long. They all make fun of me. For whenever I speak, I have to howl and proclaim violence and ruin. For me, Yahweh's word has been the cause of insult and derision all day long. I would say to myself, I will not think about him. I will not speak in his name any more. But then there seemed to be a fire burning in my heart, imprisoned in my bones. The effort to restrain it wearied me. I could not do it. I heard so many disparaging me, terror on every side. Denounce him. Let us denounce him. All those who were on good terms with me watched for my downfall. Perhaps he will be seduced into error. Then we shall get the better of him and take our revenge. But Yahweh is at my side like a mighty hero. My opponents will stumble, vanquished, confounded by their failure. Everlasting, unforgettable disgrace will be theirs. Yahweh Sabaoth, you who test the upright, observer of motives and thoughts, I shall see your vengeance on them, for I have revealed my cause to you. Sing to Yahweh, praise Yahweh, for he has delivered the soul of one in need from the clutches of evildoers. A curse on the day when I was born. May the day my mother bore me be unblessed. A curse on the man who brought my father the news. A son, a boy has been born to you, making him overjoyed. May this man be like the towns that Yahweh overthrew without mercy. May he hear the warning cry at dawn and the shout of battle at high noon, for not killing me in the womb. My mother would have been my grave and her womb pregnant forever. Why ever did I come out of the womb to see toil and sorrow and end my days in shame? Jeremiah, chapter 21. The word that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh when King Zedekiah sent Pashur son of Malchiah to him, with the priest Zephaniah son of Maaseiah, to say this, Please consult Yahweh for us, since Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon is making war on us. Perhaps Yahweh will work one of his many miracles for us and force him to withdraw. Jeremiah said to them, Take this answer to Zedekiah, Yahweh, God of Israel, says this, I shall bring back the weapons of war which you are now carrying, and with which you are fighting the king of Babylon and the Chaldeans now besieging you. From outside the walls, I shall stack them in the center of the city, and I shall fight against you myself with outstretched hand and mighty arm. in anger, fury, and great wrath. I shall strike down the inhabitants of this city, human and animal. They will die of a great plague. Then Yahweh declares, I shall deliver Zedekiah king of Judah, his officials, the people and those of this city who have escaped the plague, the sword, or the famine, into the clutches of Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, into the clutches of their enemies and into the clutches of those determined to kill them. Mercilessly, relentlessly, pitilessly, he will put them to the sword. And you must say to this people, Yahweh says this, Look, I offer you a choice between the way of life and the way of death. Anyone who stays in this city will die by sword, by famine, or by plague. But anyone who leaves it and surrenders to the Chaldeans now besieging you will live. He will escape with his life. For I am determined on disaster, and not prosperity, for this city, Yahweh declares. It will be handed over to the king of Babylon, and he will burn it down. To the royal house of Judah, listen to the word of Yahweh. House of David, Yahweh says this, each morning give fair judgment, rescue anyone who has been wronged from the hands of his oppressor, or else my wrath will leap out like a fire. It will burn and no one will be able to quench it, because of the wickedness of your actions. My quarrel is with you, resident of the valley, rock in the plain, Yahweh declares, with you that say, Who would dare attack us and enter our lairs? I shall punish you as your actions deserve, Yahweh declares. I shall set fire to its forest and it will devour all around it. Jeremiah, chapter 22. Yahweh said this, Go down to the palace of the king of Judah and there say this word. Listen to the word of Yahweh, king of Judah now occupying the throne of David, you, your officials, and your people who go through these gates. Yahweh says this, Act uprightly and justly. Rescue from the hands of the oppressor anyone who has been wronged. Do not exploit or ill-treat the stranger, the orphan, the widow. Shed no innocent blood in this place. For if you are scrupulous in obeying this command, then kings occupying the throne of David will continue to make their entry through the gates of this palace riding in chariots or on horseback, they, their officials and their people. But if you do not listen to these words, then I swear by myself, Yahweh declares, this palace shall become a ruin. Yes, this is what Yahweh says about the palace of the king of Judah. You are like Gilead to me, like a peak of Lebanon. All the same, I will reduce you to a desert, to uninhabited towns. I dedicate men to destroy you, each man with his weapons. They will cut down your finest cedars and throw them on the fire. And when many nations pass this city, they will say to one another, Why has Yahweh treated this great city like this? And the answer will be, because they abandoned the covenant of Yahweh their God to worship other gods and serve them. Do not weep for the man who is dead. Do not raise the dirge for him. Weep rather for the one who has gone away, since he will never come back, never see his native land again. For this is what Yahweh has said about Shallum son of Josiah, king of Judah, who succeeded Josiah his father and was forced to leave this place. He will never come back to it but will die in the place to which he has been taken captive, and he will never see this country again. Disaster for the man who builds his house without uprightness, his upstairs rooms without fair judgment, who makes his fellow man work for nothing, without paying him his wages, who says, I shall build myself a spacious palace with airy upstairs rooms, who makes windows in it, panels it with cedar, and paints it vermilion. Are you more of a king because of your passion for cedar? Did your father go hungry or thirsty? But he did what is just and upright, so all went well for him. He used to examine the cases of poor and needy, then all went well. Is not that what it means to know me? Yahweh demands. You on the other hand have eyes and heart for nothing but your own interests, for shedding innocent blood and perpetrating violence and oppression. That is why Yahweh says this about Jehoiakim son of Josiah, king of Judah. No lamenting for him, my poor brother, my poor sister. No lamenting for him, his poor lordship, his poor majesty. He will have a donkey's funeral, dragged away and thrown out of the gates of Jerusalem. Climb the Lebanon range and shriek, raise your voice in Bashan, shriek from the Abarim, for all your lovers have been ruined. I spoke to you in your prosperity, but you said, I will not listen. From your youth this has been how you behaved, refusing to listen to my voice. The wind will shepherd all your shepherds away, and your lovers will go into captivity. Then you will blush deep with shame at the thought of all your wickedness. You who have made the Lebanon your home and made your nest among the cedars, how you will groan when anguish overtakes you, pangs like those of a woman in labor. As I live, Yahweh declares, even if Coniah son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, with a signet ring on my right hand, I would still wrench you off. I shall hand you over to those determined to kill you, to those you dread, to Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, to the Chaldeans. I shall hurl you and the mother who bore you into another country. You were not born there, but you will both die there. They will not return to the country to which they desperately long to return. Is he a shoddy broken pot, this man Coniah, a crock that no one wants? Why are he and his offspring ejected, hurled into a country they know nothing of? O land, 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 listen to the word of Yahweh. Yahweh says this, list this man as childless, a man who made a failure of his life, since none of his offspring will succeed in occupying the throne of David, or ruling in Judah again. Jeremiah, chapter 23. Disaster for the shepherds who lose and scatter the sheep of my pasture. Yahweh declares, this therefore is what Yahweh, God of Israel, says about the shepherds who shepherd my people. You have scattered my flock, you have driven them away and have not taken care of them. Right, I shall take care of you for your misdeeds, Yahweh declares. But the remnant of my flock I myself shall gather from all the countries where I have driven them, and bring them back to their folds. They will be fruitful and increase in numbers. For them I shall raise up shepherds to shepherd them and pasture them. No fear, no terror for them any more. Not one shall be lost, Yahweh declares. Look, the days are coming, Yahweh declares, when I shall raise an upright branch for David. He will reign as king and be wise, doing what is just and upright in the country. In his days Judah will triumph, and Israel live in safety. And this is the name he will be called, Yahweh is our saving justice. So, look, the days are coming, Yahweh declares, when people will no longer say, as Yahweh lives who brought the Israelites out of Egypt, but, as Yahweh lives who led back and brought home the offspring of the house of Israel from the land of the north and all the countries to which he had driven them, to live on their own soil. On the prophets, my heart is broken within me, I tremble in all my bones. I am like a drunken man, like a man overcome with wine, because of Yahweh and his holy words. For the country is full of adulterers. Yes, because of a curse, the country is in mourning and the pasturage in the desert is dried up. They are prompt to do wrong, make no effort to do right. Yes, even prophet and priest are godless. I have detected their wickedness in my own house, Yahweh declares. Because of this, their way will prove treacherous going for them. In the darkness where they are driven, there they will fall. For I shall bring disaster on them. When the year for punishing them comes, Yahweh declares. In the prophets of Samaria I have seen insanity. They prophesied in the name of Baal and led my people Israel astray. But in the prophets of Jerusalem I have seen something horrible. Adultery, persistent lying, such abetting of the wicked that no one renounces his wickedness. To me they are all like Sodom, and its inhabitants are like Gomorrah. So this is what Yahweh Sabaoth says about the prophets. Now I shall give them wormwood to eat and make them drink poison water, since from the prophets of Jerusalem godlessness has spread throughout the land. Yahweh Sabaoth says this, do not listen to what those prophets prophesy to you. They are deluding you, they retail visions of their own, and not what comes from Yahweh's mouth. To those who despise me, they keep saying, Yahweh has spoken, you will have peace. And to all who follow their own stubborn inclinations, no disaster will touch you. But who has been present in Yahweh's counsel and seen, and heard his word? Who has paid attention to his word and listened to it? Look, Yahweh's hurricane, his wrath, bursts out, a fearsome hurricane, to burst on the heads of the wicked. Yahweh's anger will not withdraw until he has performed, has carried out, what he has in mind. In the final days, you will understand this clearly. I did not send these prophets, yet they ran. I did not speak to them, yet they prophesied. Had they been present in my council, they could have proclaimed my words to my people and turned them from their evil way and from the wickedness of their deeds. Am I a God when near, Yahweh demands, and not a God when far away? Can anyone hide somewhere secret without my seeing him? Yahweh demands. Do I not fill heaven and earth? Yahweh demands. I have heard what the prophets say who make their lying prophecies in my name. I have had a dream, they say, I have had a dream. How long are there to be those among the prophets who prophesy lies and are in fact prophets of their own delusions? They are doing their best, by means of the dreams that they keep telling each other, to make my people forget my name, just as their ancestors forgot my name in favor of Baal. Let the prophet who has had a dream tell it for a dream, and let him who receives a word from me deliver my word accurately. What have straw and wheat in common? Yahweh demands. Is my word not like fire? Yahweh demands. Is it not like a hammer shattering a rock? So, then, I have a quarrel with the prophets, Yahweh declares, that steal my words from one another. I have a quarrel with the prophets, Yahweh declares, who wag their tongues to utter prophecies. I have a quarrel with the prophets who make prophecies out of lying dreams, Yahweh declares, who recount them, and lead my people astray by their lies and their bragging. I certainly never sent them or commissioned them, and they serve no good purpose for this people, Yahweh declares. And when this people, or a prophet, or a priest, asks you, what is Yahweh's burden? You must answer, you are the burden, and I shall get rid of you, Yahweh declares. As for the prophet, the priest, or anyone else, who says, Yahweh's burden, I shall punish that man, and his household too. This is what you must say to one another, among yourselves, what answer has Yahweh given? Or what has Yahweh said? But stop using the expression Yahweh's burden, for what each man says will be his own responsibility. And you twist the words of the living God, of Yahweh Sabaoth, our God. This is the way to speak to a prophet. What answer has Yahweh given? Or what has Yahweh said? But if you say, Yahweh's burden, then Yahweh says this, since you use the expression Yahweh's burden, when I have warned you to stop saying, Yahweh's burden, believe me, I shall pick you up and fling you from my presence, you and the city I gave to you and to your ancestors. I shall bring down everlasting shame on you, everlasting and unforgettable disgrace. Jeremiah, chapter 24. Yahweh gave me a vision. Set out in front of the temple of Yahweh were 2 baskets of figs. This was after Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon had led Jeconiah son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, away into exile from Jerusalem, with the chief men of Judah, the blacksmiths and metalworkers, and had taken them to Babylon. 1 basket contained excellent figs, like those that ripen first. The other contained very bad figs, so bad they were uneatable. Yahweh said to me, What do you see, Jeremiah? Figs, I answered. The good ones excellent, the bad ones very bad, so bad as to be uneatable. Then the word of Yahweh was addressed to me. Yahweh, the God of Israel, says this, as these figs are good, so I mean to concern myself with the welfare of the exiles of Judah whom I have sent from this place to the country of the Chaldeans. My eyes will watch over them for their good, to bring them back to this country, to build them up and not to break them down, to plant them and not to uproot them. I shall give them a heart to acknowledge that I am Yahweh. They will be my people and I shall be their God, for they will return to me with all their heart. As for the bad figs, the figs so bad as to be uneatable, yes, Yahweh says this, that is how I shall treat Zedekiah king of Judah, his chief men and what is left of Jerusalem, those who remain in this country and those living in Egypt. I shall make them an object of horror, a disaster, to all the kingdoms of the earth, a thing of shame, a byword, a laughingstock, a curse, wherever I shall drive them. Sword, famine, and plague I shall send against them until they have vanished from the soil I gave to them and to their ancestors. Jeremiah, chapter 25. The word that was addressed to Jeremiah about all the people of Judah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim son of Josiah, king of Judah, that is to say the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon. The prophet Jeremiah proclaimed it before all the people of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem. For 23 years, from the 13th year of Josiah son of Ammon, king of Judah, until today, the word of Yahweh has been addressed to me, and I have never tired of speaking to you, but you have not listened. Furthermore, Yahweh has untiringly sent you all his servants the prophets, but you have not listened or paid attention. The message was this: turn back, each one of you, from your evil behavior and your evil actions, and you will go on living on the soil Yahweh long ago gave to you and your ancestors forever. And do not follow other gods to serve and worship them. Do not provoke me with things you yourselves have made, and then I shall not harm you. But you have not listened to me, Yahweh declares, so that you have now provoked me with things you yourselves have made, and thus harmed yourselves. So this is what Yahweh Sabaoth says: since you have not listened to my words, I shall now send for all the families of the north, Yahweh declares, that is, for Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, my servant, and bring them down on this country and its inhabitants, and on all these surrounding nations. I shall curse them with utter destruction and make them an object of horror, of scorn, and ruin them forever. From them I shall banish the shouts of rejoicing and mirth, the voices of bridegroom and bride, the sound of the handmill and the light of the lamp. And this whole country will be reduced to ruin and desolation, and these nations will be enslaved to the king of Babylon for 70 years. But when the 70 years are over, I shall punish the king of Babylon and that nation, Yahweh declares, for the wrong they have done, that is, the country of the Chaldeans, and make it desolate forever. And against that country I shall perform all the words with which I have threatened it, that is, everything written in this book. What Jeremiah prophesied against all the nations. For these in their turn are to be enslaved to powerful nations and great kings, and I shall pay them back as their deeds and handiwork deserve. For Yahweh, the God of Israel, said this to me: take this cup of the wine of wrath and make all the nations to whom I send you drink it. They will drink and reel and lose their wits, because of the sword I am sending among them. I took the cup from Yahweh's hand and made all the nations to whom Yahweh sent me drink it, Jerusalem and the towns of Judah, its kings and its chief men, to make them a ruin, an object of horror and derision and a curse, as is the case today. Pharaoh king of Egypt, his officials, his chief men and all his people, with a whole conglomeration of peoples there, all the kings of the country of Uz, all the kings of the country of the Philistines, Ashkelon, Gaza, Ekron, and what is still left of Ashdod, Edom, Moab, and the Ammonites, all the kings of Tyre, all the kings of Sidon, the kings of the island across the sea, Dedan, Tema, Buz, all the people with shaven temples, all the kings of Arabia, and all the kings of the conglomeration of peoples, who live in the desert, all the kings of Zimri, all the kings of Elam, and all the kings of Media, all the kings of the north, near and far, one after another. In short, all the kingdoms on the face of the earth. As for the king of Shishak, he will drink last of all. You will say to them, Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this: drink, get drunk, vomit, fall, never to rise again, before the sword that I am sending among you. If they refuse to take the cup from your hand and drink, you will say to them, Yahweh Sabaoth says this: you must drink. Look, for a start, I am bringing disaster on the city that bears my name. So are you likely to go unpunished? You certainly will not go unpunished. For next I shall summon a sword against all the inhabitants of the land, Yahweh declares. For your part, You are to prophesy all these words to them. Say to them, Yahweh roars from on high, he thunders from his holy dwelling place. Loudly he roars at his own fold, shouts aloud like those who tread the grape at all the inhabitants of the land. The noise resounds to the remotest parts of the earth. For Yahweh is indicting the nations, arraigning all humanity for judgment. The wicked he assigns to the sword, Yahweh declares. Yahweh Sabaoth says this, Look, disaster is spreading from nation to nation. A mighty tempest is rising from the far ends of the earth. Those slaughtered by Yahweh that day will be scattered across the world from end to end. No dirge will be raised for them. No one will gather them or bury them. They will stay lying on the surface like dung. Howl, shepherds, shriek, roll on the ground, you lords of the flock, for your days have come to be slaughtered and to be scattered, and like a choice vase you will fall. No refuge then for the shepherds, no escape for the lords of the flock. Listen, a shriek from the shepherds, a howl from the lords of the flock. For Yahweh has laid their pasture waste. The peaceful sheepfolds are reduced to silence owing to Yahweh's furious anger. The lion has left his lair and their country is a wasteland now, owing to the devastating fury, owing to his furious anger. Jeremiah, chapter 26. At the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim son of Josiah, king of Judah, this word came to Jeremiah from Yahweh. Yahweh says this, Stand in the court of the temple of Yahweh. To all the people from the towns of Judah who come to worship in the temple of Yahweh, you will say everything I have ordered you to say, not omitting one syllable. Perhaps they will listen and each turn from his evil way. If so, I shall relent and not bring the disaster on them which I intend because of their misdeeds. Say to them, Yahweh says this, If you will not listen to me and follow my law which I have given you, and pay attention to the words of my servants the prophets whom I have never tired of sending to you, although you never have paid attention, I shall treat this temple as I treated Shiloh, and make this city a curse for all the nations of the world. The priests and prophets and all the people heard Jeremiah say these words in the temple of Yahweh. When Jeremiah had finished saying everything that Yahweh had ordered him to say to all the people, the priests and prophets and all the people seized hold of him and said, You will die for this. Why have you made this prophecy in Yahweh's name? This temple will become like Shiloh, and this city become an uninhabited ruin. And the people all crowded in on Jeremiah in the temple of Yahweh. Hearing of this, the chief men of Judah came up from the royal palace to the temple of Yahweh and took their seats at the entry of the new gate of the temple of Yahweh. The priests and prophets then said to the chief men and all the people, This man deserves to die, since he has prophesied against this city, as you have heard with your own ears. Jeremiah, however, replied to all the chief men and all the people as follows, Yahweh himself sent me to prophesy against this temple and this city all the things you have heard. So now amend your behavior and actions. Listen to the voice of Yahweh your God, and Yahweh will relent about the disaster that he has decreed for you. For myself I am, as you see, in your hands. Do whatever you please or think right with me. But be sure of this, that if you put me to death, you will be bringing innocent blood on yourselves, on this city and on its inhabitants, since Yahweh has truly sent me to you to say all this for you to hear. The chief men and all the people then said to the priests and prophets, This man does not deserve to die. He has spoken to us in the name of Yahweh our God. And some of the country's elders rose to address all the assembled people. Micah of Morsheth, they said, who prophesied in the days of Hezekiah king of Judah, had this to say to all the people of Judah, Yahweh Sabaoth says this, Zion will become ploughland, Jerusalem a heap of rubble, and the Temple Mount a wooded height. Did Hezekiah king of Judah and all Judah put him to death for this? Did they not rather, fearing Yahweh, plead with him, to such effect that Yahweh relented about the disaster which he had decreed for them? Are we now to burden our souls with such a crime? There was another man, too, who used to prophesy in Yahweh's name, Uriah son of Shemaiah, from Kiriath-Jearim. He prophesied exactly the same things against this city and this country as Jeremiah. When King Jehoiakim with all his officers and all the chief men heard what he said, the king was determined to put him to death. On hearing this, Uriah took fright and fleeing, escaped to Egypt. King Jehoiakim, however, sent Elnathan son of Achbor to Egypt with others, who brought Uriah back from Egypt and took him to King Jehoiakim, who had him put to the sword and his body thrown into the common burial ground. But Jeremiah had a protector in Ahikam son of Shaphan, so he was not handed over to the people to be put to death. Jeremiah, chapter 27. At the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah son of Josiah, king of Judah, this word came to Jeremiah from Yahweh. Yahweh said this to me, "Make yourself thongs and yokes and put them on your neck. Then send them to the king of Edom, the king of Moab, the king of the Ammonites, the king of Tyre, and the king of Sidon, through their envoys accredited to Zedekiah king of Judah in Jerusalem. Give them the following message for their masters. Yahweh Sabaoth, God of Israel, says this. You must tell your masters this. I by my great power and outstretched arm made the earth, the human beings and the animals that are on earth, and I give them to whom I please. For the present, I have handed all these countries over to Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, my servant. I have even put the wild animals at his service. All the nations will serve him, his son and his grandson, until the time for his own country comes in its turn, when mighty nations and great kings will enslave him. Any nation or kingdom that will not serve Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon and will not bow its neck to the yoke of the king of Babylon, I shall punish that nation with sword, famine and plague, Yahweh declares, until I have destroyed it by his hand. For your own part, do not listen to your prophets, your diviners, dreamers, magicians and sorcerers, who tell you, you will not be enslaved by the king of Babylon. They prophesy lies to you, the result of which will be that you will be banished from your soil, that I shall drive you out, and you will perish. The nation, however, that is prepared to bend its neck to the yoke of the king of Babylon and serve him, I shall leave in peace on its own soil, Yahweh declares, to farm it and stay on it. To Zedekiah king of Judah I spoke in exactly the same terms. Bend your necks, I told him, to the yoke of the king of Babylon. Serve him and his people and you will survive. Why so anxious to die, you and your people, by sword, famine and plague, with which Yahweh has threatened the nation refusing to serve the king of Babylon? Do not listen to the words the prophets say to you. You will not be enslaved by the king of Babylon. They prophesy lies to you. Since I have not sent them, Yahweh declares, they prophesy untruths to you in my name. The result will be that I shall drive you out. You will perish, and so will the prophets who prophesy to you. I also spoke to the priests and to all this people as follows. Yahweh says this, do not listen to the words of your prophets who prophesy to you as follows. Look, the vessels of the temple of Yahweh will very shortly be brought back from Babylon. They prophesy lies to you. Do not listen to them. Serve the king of Babylon and you will survive. Why should this city become a ruin? If they are real prophets, if Yahweh's word is really with them, they ought now to be pleading with Yahweh Sabaoth that the remaining vessels in the temple of Yahweh, in the palace of the king of Judah and elsewhere in Jerusalem, do not go to Babylon too. For this is what Yahweh Sabaoth says about the pillars, the sea, the stands, and the other vessels still remaining in this city, those not carried off by Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon when he took Jeconiah son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon, with all the leading men of Judah and Jerusalem. Yes, this is what Yahweh Sabaoth, God of Israel, says about the vessels still remaining in the temple of Yahweh, in the palace of the king of Judah and elsewhere in Jerusalem. They will be carried off to Babylon, and stay there until the day I punish them, Yahweh declares. Then I shall bring them back and restore them to this place. Jeremiah, chapter 28. That same year, at the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah king of Judah, in the 5th month of the 4th year, the prophet Hananiah son of Azur, a Gibeonite, spoke as follows to Jeremiah in the temple of Yahweh in the presence of the priests and of all the people. Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this: I have broken the yoke of the king of Babylon. In exactly 2 years' time I shall bring back all the vessels of the temple of Yahweh which Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon took away from here and carried off to Babylon. And I shall also bring back Jeconiah son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, and all the exiles of Judah who have gone to Babylon, Yahweh declares. For I shall break the yoke of the king of Babylon. The prophet Jeremiah then replied to the prophet Hananiah in front of the priests and all the people present in the temple of Yahweh. So be it, the prophet Jeremiah said. May Yahweh do so. May he fulfill the words that you have prophesied and bring all the vessels of the temple of Yahweh and all the exiles back to this place from Babylon. Listen carefully, however, to this word that I am now going to say for you and all the people to hear. From remote times, the prophets who preceded you and me prophesied war, disaster and plague for many countries and for great kingdoms. The prophet who prophesies peace can be recognized as one truly sent by Yahweh only when his word comes true. The prophet Hananiah then snatched the yoke off the neck of the prophet Jeremiah and broke it. In front of all the people Hananiah then said, Yahweh says this is how, in exactly 2 years' time, I shall break the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon and take it off the necks of all the nations. At this, the prophet Jeremiah went away. After the prophet Hananiah had broken the yoke he had snatched off the prophet Jeremiah's neck, the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah. Go to Hananiah and tell him this. Yahweh says this: You have broken the wooden yokes only to make iron yokes to replace them. For Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this: An iron yoke is what I now lay on the necks of all these nations to enslave them to Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon. They will be enslaved to him. I have even given him the wild animals. The prophet Jeremiah said to the prophet Hananiah, Listen carefully, Hananiah. Yahweh has not sent you, and thanks to you this people is now relying on what is false. And so, Yahweh says this: I am going to send you off the face of the earth. You will die this year, since you have preached rebellion against Yahweh. The prophet Hananiah died the same year, in the 7th month. Jeremiah, chapter 29. This is the text of the letter that the prophet Jeremiah sent from Jerusalem to those who were left of the elders in exile, to the priests, the prophets and all the people whom Nebuchadnezzar had deported from Jerusalem to Babylon. This was after King Jeconiah had left Jerusalem with the queen mother, the eunuchs, the chief men of Judah and Jerusalem, and the blacksmiths and metalworkers. The letter was entrusted to Elasah son of Shaphan and to Gemariah son of Hilkiah, whom Zedekiah king of Judah had sent to Babylon, to Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon. The letter said, Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this to all the exiles deported from Jerusalem to Babylon: Build houses, settle down, plant gardens and eat what they produce. Marry and have sons and daughters. Choose wives for your sons. Find husbands for your daughters so that these can bear sons and daughters in their turn. You must increase there and not decrease. Work for the good of the city to which I have exiled you. Pray to Yahweh on its behalf, since on its welfare yours depends. For Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this: Do not be deceived by the prophets who are with you or by your diviners. Do not listen to the dreams you have, since they prophesy lies to you in my name. I have not sent them, Yahweh declares. For Yahweh says this: When the 70 years granted to Babylon are over, I shall intervene on your behalf and fulfill my favorable promise to you by bringing you back to this place. Yes, I know what plans I have in mind for you, Yahweh declares, plans for peace, not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope. When you call to me and come and pray to me, I shall listen to you. When you search for me, you will find me. When you search wholeheartedly for me, I shall let you find me, Yahweh declares. I shall restore your fortunes and gather you in from all the nations and wherever I have driven you, Yahweh declares. I shall bring you back to the place from which I exiled you. Since you say, Yahweh has raised up prophets for us in Babylon, This is what Yahweh says about the king now occupying the throne of David and all the people living in this city, your brothers who did not go with you into exile. Yahweh Sabaoth says this: I am now going to send them sword, famine, and plague. I shall make them like rotten figs, so bad as to be uneatable. I shall pursue them with sword, famine, and plague. I shall make them an object of terror to all the kingdoms of the earth, a curse, a thing of horror, scorn, and derision to all the nations where I have driven them, because they have refused to listen to my words, Yahweh declares. Although I have persistently sent them all my servants the prophets, but they would not listen, Yahweh declares. But all you exiles, whom I have sent from Jerusalem to Babylon, listen to Yahweh's word. This is what Yahweh Sabaoth, God of Israel, says about Ahab son of Kaliah, and Zedekiah son of Messiah, who prophesy lies to you in my name. I shall hand them over now to Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, who will put them to death before your very eyes. This curse, based on their fate, will be used by all the exiles of Judah in Babylon. May Yahweh treat you like Zedekiah and Ahab, roasted alive by the king of Babylon, because they have done a scandalous thing in Israel, committing adultery with their neighbors' wives and speaking lying words in my name without orders from me. I know all the same and am witness to it, Yahweh declares. And to Shemaiah of Nehelam you will speak as follows: Yahweh Sabaoth, God of Israel, says this: Since you, on your own initiative, have sent a letter to all the people in Jerusalem, to the priest Zephaniah son of Messiah, and to all the priests, saying, Yahweh has appointed you priest in place of the priest Jehoiada to keep order in the temple of Yahweh, to put any crazy fellow posing as a prophet in the stocks and collar. Why then have you not disciplined Jeremiah of Anathoth, now posing as a prophet to you? Why, he has even sent us a message in Babylon, saying, It will be a long time. Build houses, settle down, plant gardens and eat what they produce. Now, after the priest Zephaniah had read this letter to the prophet Jeremiah, the word of Yahweh came then to Jeremiah as follows: Send this message to all the exiles. This is what Yahweh says about Shemaiah of Nehelam. Since Shemaiah has prophesied to you without my sending him, and since he has caused you to rely on what is false for that reason, Yahweh declares, I shall punish Shemaiah of Nehelam and his descendants. No male member of his family will survive among this people to see the happiness that I will bestow on my people, Yahweh declares, since he has preached rebellion against Yahweh. Jeremiah, chapter 30. The word which came to Jeremiah from Yahweh, as follows: Yahweh, God of Israel, says this: Write for yourself in a book all the words I have spoken to you. For look, the days are coming, Yahweh declares, when I shall bring back the captives of my people Israel and Judah, Yahweh says. I shall make them come back and take possession of the country I gave to their ancestors. These are the words Yahweh spoke about Israel and Judah. Yahweh says this: We have heard a cry of panic, of terror, not of peace. Now ask and see, can a man bear children? Then why do I see each man with his hands on his loins like a woman in labor? Why has every face grown pale? Disaster! This is the great day, no other like it. A time of distress for Jacob, though he will be saved from it. That day, Yahweh Sabaoth declares, I shall break the yoke now on your neck and snap your chains, and foreigners will enslave you no more, but Israel and Judah will serve Yahweh their God, and David their king whom I shall raise up for them. So do not be afraid, my servant Jacob, Yahweh declares. Israel, do not be alarmed. For look, I shall rescue you from distant countries and your descendants from the country where they are captive. Jacob will return and be at peace, secure, with no one to trouble him. For I am with you to save you, Yahweh declares. I shall make an end of all the nations where I have driven you, but I shall not make an end of you, only discipline you in moderation, not to let you go quite unpunished. Yes, Yahweh says this: Your wound is incurable, your injury past healing. There is no one to plead your cause. For an ulcer there are remedies, but for you no cure at all. All your lovers have forgotten you, they look for you no more. Yes, I have struck you as an enemy strikes, with cruel punishment, because of your great guilt and countless sins. Why cry out because of your wound? Your pain is incurable. Because of your great guilt and countless sins, I have treated you like this. But all those who devoured you will be devoured, all your enemies, all, go into captivity. Those who despoiled you will be despoiled, and all who pillaged you be pillaged. For I shall restore you to health and heal your wounds, Yahweh declares. You who used to be called outcast, Zion for whom no one cares. Yahweh says this, Look, I shall restore the tents of Jacob and take pity on his dwellings. The town will be rebuilt on its mound, the stronghold where it ought to stand. From them will come thanksgiving and shouts of joy. I shall make them increase, they will not decrease. I shall make them honored, no more to be humbled. Their sons will be as once they were, their community fixed firmly before me, and I shall punish all their oppressors. Their prince will be one of their own, their ruler come from their own people, and I shall permit him to approach me freely. For who otherwise would be so bold as to approach me, Yahweh demands? You will be my people, and I shall be your God. Look, Yahweh's hurricane, his wrath, bursts out, a roaring hurricane, to burst on the heads of the wicked. Yahweh's burning anger will not turn aside until he has performed, has carried out, what he has in mind. In the final days you will understand this. Jeremiah, chapter 31. When that time comes, Yahweh declares, I shall be the God of all the families of Israel, and they will be my people. Yahweh says this, They have found pardon in the desert, those who have survived the sword. Israel is marching to his rest. Yahweh has appeared to me from afar. I have loved you with an everlasting love, and so I still maintain my faithful love for you. I shall build you once more. Yes, you will be rebuilt, Virgin of Israel. Once more in your best attire, and with your tambourines, you will go out dancing gaily. Once more you will plant vineyards on the mountains of Samaria. Those who plant will themselves enjoy the fruit. Yes, a day will come when the watchmen shout on the mountains of Ephraim, Up! Let us go up to Zion, to Yahweh our God. For Yahweh says this, Shout with joy for Jacob. Hail the chief of nations. Proclaim, praise, shout, Yahweh has saved his people, the remnant of Israel. Watch, I shall bring them back from the land of the north and gather them in from the far ends of the earth. With them, the blind and the lame, women with child, women in labor, all together. A mighty throng will return here. In tears they will return. In prayer I shall lead them. I shall guide them to streams of water, by a smooth path where they will not stumble. For I am a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn son. Listen, nations, to the word of Yahweh. On the farthest coasts and islands proclaim it, say, He who scattered Israel is gathering him, will guard him as a shepherd guarding his flock. For Yahweh has ransomed Jacob, rescued him from a hand stronger than his own. They will come, shouting for joy on the heights of Zion, thronging towards Yahweh's lavish gifts, for wheat, new wine and oil, sheep and cattle. They will be like a well-watered garden, they will sorrow no more. The young girl will then take pleasure in the dance, and young men and old alike. I shall change their mourning into gladness, comfort them, give them joy after their troubles. I shall refresh my priests with rich food, and my people will gorge themselves on my lavish gifts, Yahweh declares. Yahweh says this, A voice is heard in Ramah, lamenting and weeping bitterly. It is Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted for her children, because they are no more. Yahweh says this, Stop your lamenting, dry your eyes, for your labor will have a reward, Yahweh declares, and they will return from the enemy's country. There is hope for your future after all, Yahweh declares. Your children will return to their homeland. I have indeed heard Ephraim's grieving. You flogged me. I took a flogging like a young, untrained bull. Bring me back, let me come back, for you are Yahweh my God. For since I turned away, I have repented. Having understood, I beat my breast. I was deeply ashamed. I blushed, aware of the disgrace incurred when I was young. Is Ephraim, then, so dear a son to me, a child so favored, that whenever I mention him I remember him lovingly still? That is why I yearn for him, why I must take pity on him, Yahweh declares. Set up your signposts, raise yourself landmarks, fix your mind on the road, the way by which you went. Come home, Virgin of Israel. Come home to these towns of yours. How long will you hesitate, rebellious daughter? For Yahweh is creating something new on earth. The woman sets out to find her husband again. Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this: in the country of Judah and in its towns, they will use these words once more, when I bring their captives home. Yahweh bless you, home of saving justice, holy mountain. And in this country, Judah and all its towns, the ploughmen and those who wander with their flocks will live together. For I shall give the weary all they need and satisfy all those whose strength is gone. At this, I awoke and saw that my sleep had been sweet to me. Look, the days are coming, Yahweh declares, when I shall sow the house of Israel and the house of Judah with the seed both of people and of cattle. And as I once watched over them to uproot, to knock down, to overthrow, destroy and bring disaster, so now I shall watch over them to build and to plant, Yahweh declares. In those days people will no longer say, the fathers have eaten unripe grapes, the children's teeth are set on edge. But each will die for his own guilt. Everyone who eats unripe grapes will have his own teeth set on edge. Look, the days are coming, Yahweh declares, when I shall make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah, but not like the covenant I made with their ancestors the day I took them by the hand to bring them out of Egypt, a covenant which they broke, even though I was their master, Yahweh declares. No, this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Israel when those days have come, Yahweh declares. Within them I shall plant my law, writing it on their hearts. Then I shall be their God and they will be my people. There will be no further need for everyone to teach neighbor or brother, saying, learn to know Yahweh. No, they will all know me, from the least to the greatest, Yahweh declares, since I shall forgive their guilt and never more call their sin to mind. Yahweh who provides the sun to shine by day, who regulates moon and stars to shine by night, who stirs the sea, making its waves roar, he whose name is Yahweh Sabaoth, says this: were this established order ever to pass away before me, Yahweh declares, then the race of Israel would also cease being a nation forever before me. Yahweh says this: were the heavens above ever to be measured, the foundations of the earth below ever to be fathomed, then I too would reject the whole race of Israel for all that they have done, Yahweh declares. Look, the days are coming, Yahweh declares, when the city will be rebuilt for Yahweh, from the tower of Hananel to the corner gate. Then once again the measuring line will stretch straight to the hill of Gareb, turning then to Goah, and the whole valley, with its corpses and ashes, and all the ground beside the ravine of the Kidron as far as the corner of the horse gate, eastwards, will be consecrated to Yahweh. It will never be destroyed or demolished again. Jeremiah, chapter 32. The word that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh in the 10th year of Zedekiah king of Judah, which was the 18th year of Nebuchadnezzar. The army of the king of Babylon was then besieging Jerusalem, and the prophet Jeremiah was confined in the court of the guard in the king of Judah's palace, where Zedekiah king of Judah had confined him, saying, why do you keep prophesying like this? Yahweh says this: I am going to hand this city over to the king of Babylon, and he will capture it, and Zedekiah king of Judah will not escape the clutches of the Chaldeans, but will certainly be handed over to the king of Babylon. Speak to him personally and see him face to face. He will take Zedekiah away to Babylon, and there he will stay, until I attend to him, Yahweh declares. If you fight the Chaldeans, you will not succeed. Jeremiah said, The word of Yahweh has been addressed to me as follows. Look, Hanamel the son of your uncle Shallum will come to you and say, Buy my field at Anathoth, for you have the right of redemption to purchase it. And as Yahweh had said, my cousin Hanamel came to me in the court of the guard and said, Buy my field at Anathoth in the territory of Benjamin, for you have the right of inheritance and right of redemption. Buy it. I knew then that this was Yahweh's order. Accordingly, I bought the field for my cousin Hanamel of Anathoth and weighed him out the money, 17 silver shekels. I drew up the deeds and sealed it, called in witnesses and weighed out the money on the scales. I then took both the sealed deed of purchase, with its stipulations and clauses, and its open copy and handed over the deed of purchase to Baruch son of Neriah, son of Maaseiah, in the presence of my cousin Hanamel, of the witnesses who had signed the deed of purchase, and of all the Judeans who then happened to be in the court of the guard. In their presence I gave Baruch this order. Yahweh Sabaoth, God of Israel, says this, Take these deeds, the sealed deed of purchase and its open copy, and put them in an earthenware pot, so that they may be preserved for a long time. For Yahweh Sabaoth, God of Israel, says this, Houses, fields, and vineyards will again be bought in this country. After I had entrusted the deed of purchase to Baruch son of Neriah, I prayed to Yahweh as follows, Ah, Lord Yahweh, you made the heavens and the earth by your great power and outstretched arm. To you nothing is impossible. You show faithful love to thousands, but repay the father's guilt in full to their children after them. Great and mighty God, whose name is Yahweh Sabaoth, great in purpose, mighty in deed, whose eyes are open on all human ways, rewarding every individual as that person's ways and actions deserve. You performed signs and wonders in Egypt, as you still do in Israel and among humanity today. You have won the name for yourself which is yours today. You brought your people Israel out of Egypt with signs and wonders, with mighty hand and outstretched arm and fearsome terror. Then you gave them this country which you had promised on oath to their ancestors, a country flowing with milk and honey. They then entered it, taking possession of it, but they would not listen to your voice nor follow your law. They would do nothing you ordered them to do, and so you made this total disaster befall them. Look, the earthworks are already in place to take the city, and by means of sword, famine, and plague, the city is now within the clutches of the Chaldeans attacking it. What you said has now come true, as you see. Yet you yourself, Lord Yahweh, told me, Buy the field, pay for it, have it witnessed, although the city is already in the Chaldeans' clutches. The word of Yahweh was addressed to me as follows, Look, I am Yahweh, God of all humanity. Is anything impossible to me? So Yahweh says this, I shall hand this city over to the Chaldeans and to Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, and he will capture it. The Chaldeans attacking this city will enter it, fire it and burn it to the ground, with the houses on whose roofs incense has been offered to Baal and libations poured to other gods, to provoke my anger. For the people of Israel and Judah alike have done nothing but what displeases me since they were young. The people of Israel, in fact, have done nothing but provoke my anger by their actions, Yahweh declares. Yes, from the day when this city was built until today, it has been such cause of anger and wrath to me that I mean to remove it from my sight, on account of all the wickedness the people of Israel and the people of Judah have done to provoke my anger. They, their kings, their chief men, their priests, their prophets, the people of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, they turned to me their backs, never their faces. And though I taught them so urgently, so untiringly, they would not listen and accept correction. Instead, they set up their horrors in the temple that bears my name to defile it, and built the high places of Baal in the valley of Ben Hinnom, to burn their sons and daughters alive in honor of Molech, a thing I have never ordered, that had never entered my thoughts, that they would cause Judah to sin by anything so loathsome. So now, this is what Yahweh, God of Israel, says about this city of which you now say, By means of sword, famine, and plague, it is already within the king of Babylon's clutches. Look, I shall gather them in from all the countries where I have driven them in my anger, my fury and great wrath. I shall bring them back to this place and make them live in safety. Then they will be my people, and I shall be their God. I shall give them singleness of heart and singleness of conduct, so that they will always fear me, for their own good and that of their children after them. I shall make an everlasting covenant with them, never to cease in my efforts for their welfare, and I shall put respect for me in their hearts, so that they will never turn away from me again. My joy will lie in them and in doing them good, and I shall plant them firmly in this country, with all my heart and soul. For Yahweh says this: just as I have brought this complete and total disaster on this people, so I shall bring them all the good things I have promised them. Fields will again be bought in this country of which you now say, it is a wasteland without human or animal, already in the clutches of the Chaldeans. People will buy fields, pay money, draw up deeds, seal them and have them witnessed in the territory of Benjamin, in the districts round Jerusalem, in the towns of Judah, of the highlands, of the lowlands and of the Negeb. For I shall bring back their captives, Yahweh declares. Jeremiah, chapter 33. Jeremiah was still confined to the court of the guard when the word of Yahweh came to him a second time, as follows: Yahweh who made the earth, who formed it and set it firm, Yahweh is his name, says this: call to me and I will answer you. I will tell you great secrets of which you know nothing. For this is what Yahweh, God of Israel, says about the houses of this city and the palaces of the kings of Judah which are about to be destroyed by means of the earthworks and the sword. About those now fighting the Chaldeans, only to fill the city with corpses, those whom I have slaughtered in my furious anger, those whose wickedness has made me hide my face from this city. Look, I shall bring them remedy and cure. I shall cure them and reveal a new order of peace and loyalty to them. I shall bring back the captives of Judah and the captives of Israel, and shall rebuild them as before. I shall cleanse them of all their guilt, by which they have offended me. I shall forgive all their guilty actions, by which they have offended me and rebelled against me. And, for me, Jerusalem will become a name of joy and praise and pride for all the nations on earth to see. When they hear of all the prosperity that I shall give, they will be seized with fear and trembling at all the prosperity and the peace that I provide for it. Yahweh says this: in this place of which you now say, it is a ruin, without human or animal, in the towns of Judah and desolate streets of Jerusalem where there is neither human nor animal, once more will be heard shouts of rejoicing and mirth, the voices of bridegroom and bride, and the singing of those who bring thanksgiving sacrifices to the temple of Yahweh. Give thanks to Yahweh Sabaoth, for Yahweh is good, for his faithful love is everlasting. For I shall bring back the country's captives, as before, Yahweh says. Yahweh Sabaoth says this: in this ruinous place, without human or animal, in all its towns, once again there will be pastures for the shepherds to rest their flocks. In the towns of the highlands, of the lowlands and the Negeb, in the territory of Benjamin, in the districts round Jerusalem and in the towns of Judah, once again the flocks shall pass under the hand of someone who counts them, Yahweh says. Look, the days are coming, Yahweh declares, when I shall fulfill the promise of happiness I made to the house of Israel and the house of Judah. In those days and at that time, I shall make an upright branch grow for David, who will do what is just and upright in the country. In those days Judah will triumph, and Israel live in safety. And this is the name the city will be called: Yahweh is our saving justice. For Yahweh says this: David will never lack a male descendant to occupy the throne of the house of Israel, nor will the Levitical priests ever lack male descendants to stand before me and offer the burnt offering, to burn the cereal offering and offer sacrifice every day. The word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah as follows: Yahweh says this: if you could break my covenant with the day and my covenant with the night, so that day and night do not come at their due time, then my covenant with David my servant might also be broken, and he would have no son to reign on his throne. And so also might my covenant with the Levitical priests, who are my ministers. As surely as the array of heaven cannot be counted, nor the sand of the sea be measured, so surely shall I increase the heirs of David my servant and the Levites who minister to me. The word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah as follows: have you not noticed what these people say? The two families which Yahweh chose he has now rejected? So they despise my people, whom they no longer think of as a nation. Yahweh says this, if I have not created day and night and fixed the laws governing heaven and earth, why? Then I shall reject the descendants of Jacob and of David my servant and cease to choose rulers from his descendants for the heirs of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob. For I shall bring back their captives and take pity on them. Jeremiah chapter 34. The word came to Jeremiah from Yahweh when Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon and his whole army, with all the kingdoms of the earth under his dominion and all the peoples, were waging war on Jerusalem and all its towns. Yahweh, God of Israel, says this, Go and speak to Zedekiah king of Judah and tell him, Yahweh says this, I am going to hand this city over to the power of the king of Babylon, and he will burn it down. And you yourself will not escape his clutches, but will certainly be captured and handed over to him. You will see the king of Babylon face to face and speak to him personally. Then you will go to Babylon. Even so, listen to the word of Yahweh, Zedekiah king of Judah. This is what Yahweh says about you. You will not die by the sword. You will die in peace. And as spices were burnt for your ancestors, the kings who in times past preceded you, so spices will be burnt for you and a dirge sung for you. Alas for his highness! I have spoken, Yahweh declares. The prophet Jeremiah repeated all these words to Zedekiah king of Judah in Jerusalem. While the army of the king of Babylon was attacking Jerusalem and all such towns of Judah as still held out, namely Lachish and Azekah, these being the only fortified towns of Judah remaining. The word came to Jeremiah from Yahweh after King Zedekiah had made a covenant with all the people in Jerusalem to issue a proclamation freeing their slaves. Each man was to free his Hebrew slaves, men and women. No one was any longer to keep a brother Judean in slavery. All the chief men and all the people who had entered into the covenant had agreed that everyone should free his slaves, men or women, and no longer keep them as slaves. They had agreed on this and set them free. Afterwards, however, they changed their minds, recovered the slaves, men and women, whom they had set free, and reduced them to slavery again. The word of Yahweh came then to Jeremiah as follows, Yahweh, God of Israel, says this, I made a covenant with your ancestors when I brought them out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. It said, At the end of 7 years each one of you is to free his brother Hebrew who has sold himself to you. He may be your slave for 6 years, then you must send him away free. But your ancestors did not listen to me and would not pay attention. Now, today you repented and did what pleases me by proclaiming freedom for your neighbor. You made a covenant before me in the temple that bears my name. And then you changed your minds and, profaning my name, each of you has recovered his slaves, men and women, whom you had sent away free to live their own lives, and has forced them to become your slaves again. So Yahweh says this, You have disobeyed me, by failing to grant freedom to brother and neighbor. Very well, I in my turn, Yahweh declares, shall leave sword, famine and plague free to deal with you, and I shall make you an object of horror to all the kingdoms of the earth. As for the people who have broken my covenant, who have not observed the terms of the covenant which they made before me, I shall treat them like the calf that people cut in two to pass between its pieces. The chief men of Judah and Jerusalem, the eunuchs, the priests, and all the country people who have passed between the pieces of the calf, I shall hand over to their enemies and those determined to kill them, and their corpses will be food for the birds of the sky and the animals of earth. As for Zedekiah king of Judah and his chief men, I shall hand them to their enemies, to those determined to kill them, and to the army of the king of Babylon which is just withdrawn. Listen, I shall give the order, Yahweh declares, and bring them back to the city to attack it and capture it and burn it down. And I shall make an uninhabited waste of the towns of Judah. Jeremiah chapter 35. The word which came to Jeremiah from Yahweh in the days of Jehoiakim son of Josiah, king of Judah, Go to the clan of the Rechabites and speak to them. Bring them into one of the rooms of the temple of Yahweh and offer them wine to drink. So I took Jezaniah son of Jeremiah, son of Habazziniah, with his brothers and all his sons, the whole Rechabite clan, and brought them to the temple of Yahweh into the room of Ben-Johanan son of Igdaliah, a man of God, which was next to that of the chief men, above the room of Messiah son of Shallum, guardian of the threshold. I then set pitchers full of wine, and some cups, before the members of the Rechabite clan and said, "Drink some wine." But they replied, "We do not drink wine, because our ancestor Jonadab son of Rechab gave us this order. You must not drink wine, neither you nor your sons forever. Nor must you build houses, sow seed, plant vineyards or own them, but must live in tents all your lives, so that you may live long on the soil to which you are alien. We have punctiliously obeyed the orders of our ancestor, Jonadab son of Rechab, never drinking wine ourselves, nor our wives, our sons or our daughters, not building houses to live in, owning neither vineyard nor field nor seed, living in tents. We have obeyed the orders of our ancestor Jonadab, respecting them in every particular. However, when Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon invaded this country, we decided, we must get away. We will go to Jerusalem to escape the armies of the Chaldeans and Arameans. So that is why we are living in Jerusalem. Then the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah as follows, Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this, "Go and say to the people of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, will you never learn the lesson and listen to my words, Yahweh demands? The words of Jonadab son of Rechab, ordering his sons to drink no wine, have been observed. Obedient to their ancestors' command, they drink none even today. But to me, who spoke to you so urgently, so untiringly, you have not listened. I have urgently and untiringly sent you all my servants the prophets to say, turn back, each one of you, from your evil behavior and amend your actions. Do not follow other gods to serve them, and you will go on living on the soil I gave to you and your ancestors. But you have not paid attention or listened to me. Thus the sons of Jonadab son of Rechab have kept the command their ancestor gave them. But this people has not listened to me. And so, Yahweh, God Sabaoth, God of Israel, says this, Look on Judah and the citizens of Jerusalem, I am going to bring all the disaster which I have decreed for them, because I spoke to them and they would not listen, called to them and they would not answer. Then Jeremiah said to the Rechabite clan, Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this, Because you have obeyed the orders of your ancestor Jonadab and observed all his rules and done everything he ordered you to do, therefore, Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this, Jonadab son of Rechab will never lack a male descendant to stand before me forever. Jeremiah, chapter 36. In the 4th year of Jehoiakim son of Josiah, king of Judah, this word came to Jeremiah from Yahweh, Take a scroll and on it write all the words I have spoken to you about Israel, Judah and all the nations, from the day I first spoke to you, in the time of Josiah, until today. Perhaps when the house of Judah hears about all the disaster I intend to inflict on them, they will turn, each one of them, from their evil behavior, so that I can forgive their sinful guilt. Jeremiah then summoned Baruch son of Neriah, who at his dictation wrote down on the scroll all the words Yahweh had spoken to him. Jeremiah then gave Baruch this order, As I am prevented from entering the temple of Yahweh, you yourself must go and, from the scroll you wrote at my dictation, read all Yahweh's words to the people in his temple on the day of the fast. And in this way you can read them in the hearing also of all the Judeans who come in from their towns. Perhaps their prayers will move Yahweh, and they will turn one and all from their evil behavior. For great is the furious anger with which Yahweh has threatened this people. Baruch son of Neriah duly carried out the order that the prophet Jeremiah had given him, to read all Yahweh's words from the book in his temple. Now, in the 5th year of Jehoiakim son of Josiah, king of Judah, in the 9th month, all the people of Jerusalem and all the people who could get to Jerusalem from the towns of Judah were summoned to a fast before Yahweh. Baruch then read Jeremiah's words from the book. This happened in the room of Gemariah son of the scribe Shaphan, in the upper court at the entry of the new gate of the temple of Yahweh, where all the people could hear. Micaiah son of Gemariah, son of Shaphan, having heard all Yahweh's words read from the book, went down to the royal palace, to the scribe's room. All the chief men were in session, the scribe Elishama, Delaiah son of Shemaiah, Elnathan son of Achbor, Gemariah son of Shaphan, Zedekiah son of Hananiah and all the other chief men. And to them Micaiah reported all the words he heard as Baruch was reading the book aloud to the people. The chief men then by common consent sent Jehudi son of Netaniah to Baruch, with Shelemiah son of Cushi, to say, Come, and bring the scroll with you which you have been reading to the people. Bringing the scroll with him, Baruch son of Neriah appeared before them. Sit down, they said, and read it out. So Baruch read it to them. Having heard all the words, they turned to one another in alarm and said to Baruch, We must certainly inform the king of this. They then questioned Baruch. Tell us, they said, how you came to write all these words. Jeremiah dictated them all to me, Baruch replied, and I wrote them down in ink in this book. The chief men said to Baruch, You and Jeremiah had better go into hiding, and do not tell anyone where you are. Whereupon they went off to the king in the palace court, depositing the scroll in the room of the scribe Elishama. They then informed the king of the whole affair. The king sent Jehudi for the scroll, and he brought it from the room of the scribe Elishama and read it to the king and all the chief men standing round the king. The king was sitting in his winter apartments. It was the 9th month, with a fire burning in a brazier in front of him. Each time Jehudi had read 3 or 4 columns, the king cut them off with a scribe's knife and threw them into the fire in the brazier until the whole of the scroll had been burnt in the brazier fire. But in spite of hearing all these words, neither the king nor any of his courtiers took alarm or tore their clothes. And although Elnathan and Delaiah and Gemariah had urged the king not to burn the scroll, he would not listen to them, but ordered the king's son Jerahmeel and Sariah son of Azriel and Shelemiah son of Abdeel to arrest the scribe Baruch and the prophet Jeremiah. But Yahweh had hidden them. Then the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah, after the king had burned the scroll containing the words Baruch had written at Jeremiah's dictation. Take another scroll and write down all the words that were written on the first scroll burnt by Jehoiakim king of Judah. And as regards Jehoiakim king of Judah, you are to say, Yahweh says this, You have burnt that scroll, saying, Why have you written down? The king of Babylon will certainly come and lay this country waste and leave it without human or animal. So, this is what Yahweh says about Jehoiakim king of Judah. He will have no one to occupy the throne of David, and his corpse will be tossed out to the heat of the day and the frost of the night. I shall punish him, his offspring and his courtiers for their guilt. On them, on the citizens of Jerusalem and on the people of Judah, I shall bring the total disaster which I had decreed for them, but to which they have paid no attention. Jeremiah then took another scroll and gave it to the scribe Baruch son of Neriah, who in it at Jeremiah's dictation wrote all the words of the book that Jehoiakim king of Judah had burnt, with many similar words in addition. Jeremiah, chapter 37. Zedekiah son of Josiah became king, succeeding Coniah son of Jehoiakim. Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon had made him king of Judah. But neither he nor his courtiers nor the people of the country paid any attention to the words Yahweh spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. King Zedekiah sent Jehukal son of Shelemiah and the priest Zephaniah son of Maaseiah to the prophet Jeremiah with this message, Intercede for us with Yahweh our God. Now Jeremiah was still moving freely among the people. He had not yet been put in prison. Meanwhile, Pharaoh's army was on the move from Egypt, and the Chaldeans besieging Jerusalem had raised the siege when they heard the news. Then the word of Yahweh came to the prophet Jeremiah as follows, Yahweh, God of Israel, says this, To the king of Judah who sent you to consult me make this reply, Is Pharaoh's army marching to your aid? It will withdraw to its own country, Egypt. The Chaldeans will return to attack this city. They will capture it and burn it down. Yahweh says this, Do not cheer yourselves up by thinking, The Chaldeans are leaving us for good. They are not leaving. Even if you cut to pieces the whole Chaldean army now fighting against you until there were only the wounded left, they would stand up again, each man in his tent, to burn this city down. At the time when the Chaldean army, threatened by Pharaoh's army, had raised the siege of Jerusalem, Jeremiah set out from Jerusalem for the territory of Benjamin to see about a piece of his property among the people there. He was at the Benjamin gate when the guard commander there, a certain Erijah son of Shelemiah, son of Hananiah, arrested the prophet Jeremiah, shouting, "You are deserting to the Chaldeans." Jeremiah answered, "It is a lie. I am not deserting to the Chaldeans." But Erijah would not listen to Jeremiah and took him under arrest to the chief men. And the chief men, furious with Jeremiah, had him beaten and shut up in the house of the scribe Jonathan, which had been turned into a prison. Thus Jeremiah found himself in an underground vault, and there for a long time he stayed. Later, King Zedekiah had him sent for, and the king questioned him privately in his palace. "Is there any word from Yahweh?" he asked. "There is," Jeremiah answered, and added, "You will be handed over to the king of Babylon." Jeremiah then said to King Zedekiah, "What wrong have I done you, or your courtiers or this people, for you to have put me in prison? Where are your prophets now who prophesied, 'The king of Babylon will not attack you or this country'? So now I beg you to hear me, my lord king. I beg you to approve my request. Do not have me taken back to the house of the scribe Jonathan, or I shall die there." King Zedekiah then gave an order, and Jeremiah was confined in the court of the guard and given a loaf of bread a day from the street of the bakers as long as there was bread left in the city. So Jeremiah stayed in the court of the guard. Jeremiah chapter 38. But Shephatiah son of Mattan, Gedaliah son of Pashur, Jukal son of Shelemiah and Pashur son of Malchiah heard the words which Jeremiah was saying to all the people. "Yahweh says this, anyone who stays in this city will die by sword, famine or plague, but anyone who leaves it and surrenders to the Chaldeans will live. He will escape with his life. Yahweh says this city will certainly be handed over to the army of the king of Babylon, and he will capture it." The chief men then said to the king, "You must have this man put to death. He is unquestionably disheartening the remaining soldiers in the city, and all the people too, by talking like this. This man is seeking not the welfare of the people but their ruin." King Zedekiah answered, "He is in your hands as you know, for the king is powerless to oppose you." So they took Jeremiah and put him into the storage well of the king's son Malchiah in the court of the guard, letting him down with ropes. There was no water in the storage well, only mud, and into the mud Jeremiah sank. But Ebed-melech the Cushite, a eunuch attached to the palace, heard that Jeremiah had been put into the storage well. As the king was sitting in the Benjamin gate, Ebed-melech came out from the palace and spoke to the king. "My lord king," he said, "these men have done a wicked thing by treating the prophet Jeremiah like this. They have thrown him into the storage well. He will starve to death there, since there is no more food in the city." At this the king gave Ebed-melech the Cushite the following order: "Take 30 men with you from here and pull the prophet Jeremiah out of the storage well before he dies." Ebed-melech took the men with him and went into the palace to the treasury wardrobe. Out of it he took some torn, worn-out rags which he lowered on ropes to Jeremiah in the storage well. Ebed-melech the Cushite then said to Jeremiah, "These torn, worn-out rags are for you to put under your armpits to pad the ropes." Jeremiah did this. Then they hauled Jeremiah up with the ropes and pulled him out of the storage well. And Jeremiah stayed in the court of the guard. King Zedekiah had the prophet Jeremiah summoned to him at the third entrance to the temple of Yahweh. "I want to ask you for a word," the king said to Jeremiah. "Keep nothing back from me." Jeremiah answered Zedekiah, "If I do proclaim it to you, are you not sure to have me put to death? And if I give you advice, you will not listen to me." King Zedekiah then secretly swore this oath to Jeremiah, "As Yahweh lives, giver of this life of ours, I will have you neither put to death nor handed over to these men who are determined to kill you." Jeremiah then said to Zedekiah, "Yahweh, God Sabaoth, God of Israel, says this, if you go out and surrender to the king of Babylon's generals, your life will be safe and this city will not be burnt down. You and your family will survive. But if you do not go out and surrender to the king of Babylon's generals, this city will be handed over to the Chaldeans and they will burn it down. Nor will you yourself escape their clutches." King Zedekiah then said to Jeremiah, "I am afraid of the Judeans who have already gone over to the Chaldeans. I might be handed over to them and they would ill-treat me." "You will not be handed over to them," Jeremiah replied. "Please listen to Yahweh's voice as I have related to you, and then all will go well with you and your life will be safe. But if you refuse to surrender, this is what Yahweh has shown me. The sight of all the women left in the king of Judah's palace being led off to the king of Babylon's generals and saying, 'They have misled you, they have triumphed over you, those friends of yours. Your feet have sunk in the mud. They are up and away. Yes, all your wives and children will be led off to the Chaldeans, and you yourself will not escape their clutches but will be a prisoner in the clutches of the king of Babylon. And as for this city, it will be burnt down.'" Zedekiah then said to Jeremiah, "Do not let anyone else hear these words, or you will die. If the chief men hear that I have been talking to you, and come and say, 'Tell us what you said to the king and what the king said to you. Keep nothing back from us, or we shall put you to death,' you must reply, 'I presented this request to the king, that he would not have me sent back to Jonathan's house to die.'" And in fact all the chief men came to Jeremiah and questioned him. He told them exactly what the king had ordered him to say. They then left him in peace, since the conversation had not been overheard. And Jeremiah stayed in the court of the guard until the day Jerusalem was captured. And he was there when Jerusalem actually was captured. Jeremiah chapter 39. In the 9th year of Zedekiah king of Judah, in the 10th month, Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon advanced on Jerusalem with his entire army, and they laid siege to it. In the 11th year of Zedekiah, in the 4th month, a breach was made in the city wall. The king of Babylon's officials, all having made their entry, took their seats in the middle gate. Nergal-Sharezer, Samgar-Nebo, Sarsekim a high dignitary of state, Nergal-Sharezer the chief astrologer, and all the king of Babylon's other officials. On seeing them, Zedekiah king of Judah and all the fighting men fled, leaving the city under cover of dark, by way of the king's garden through the gate between the two walls, and made their way towards the Arabah. But the Chaldean troops pursued them and caught up with Zedekiah in the plains of Jericho. They captured him and took him to Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon at Riblah in the territory of Hamath, where he passed sentence on him. The king of Babylon had Zedekiah's sons slaughtered before his eyes at Riblah. The king of Babylon also had all the leading men of Judah put to death. He then put out Zedekiah's eyes and, loading him with chains, carried him off to Babylon. The Chaldeans burnt down the royal palace and the private houses, and demolished the walls of Jerusalem. Nebuzaradan, commander of the guard, deported the remainder of the population left behind in the city, the deserters who had gone over to him, and the rest of the artisans to Babylon. But Nebuzaradan, commander of the guard, left some of the poor people behind in the country of Judah, those who had nothing, at the same time giving them vineyards and fields. With regard to Jeremiah, Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon had given the following orders to Nebuzaradan, commander of the guard: "Take him, look after him. Do him no harm, but treat him as he may ask you." He entrusted this mission to Nebuzaradan, commander of the guard, Nebuchadnezzar the high dignitary of state, Nergal-Sharezer the chief astrologer, and all the king of Babylon's other officials. These dispatched men to take Jeremiah from the court of the guard and turned him over to Gedaliah son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, for safe conduct home. So he remained among the people. While Jeremiah was confined in the court of the guard, the word of Yahweh came to him as follows: "Go and say to Ebed-Melech the Cushite, Yahweh, God of Israel, says this: Look, I am about to perform my words about this city for its ruin and not for its prosperity. That day they will come true before your eyes. But I shall rescue you that day, Yahweh declares, and you will not be handed over to the hands of the men you fear. Yes, I shall certainly rescue you. You will not fall to the sword. You will escape with your life, because you have put your trust in me, Yahweh declares. Jeremiah, chapter 40. The word which came to Jeremiah from Yahweh after Nebuzaradan, commander of the guard, had released him from Ramah, where he had found him in chains with all the other captives from Jerusalem and Judah who were being deported to Babylon. The commander of the guard took Jeremiah and said to him, Yahweh your God foretold calamity for this country, and now he has brought it. He has done what he threatened to do, because you had sinned against Yahweh and would not listen to his voice. So all this has happened to you. Look, today I am having your hands unchained. If you like to come with me to Babylon, come, I shall look after you. If you do not want to come with me to Babylon, do not. Look, you have the whole country before you. Go wherever you think it best and most suitable to go. And before Jeremiah retired, he added, You can go back to Gedaliah son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, whom the king of Babylon has appointed governor of the towns of Judah, and stay with him among the people, or go anywhere else you think suitable. With that, the commander of the guard gave him provisions and a present, and dismissed him. Jeremiah went to Mizpah, to Gedaliah son of Ahikam, and stayed with him, among those people still left in the country. When the military leaders who with their men were still in the field, all heard that the king of Babylon had appointed Gedaliah son of Ahikam as governor of the country, making him responsible for the men, women, and children, and those of the poor country people who had not been deported to Babylon, they came to Gedaliah at Mizpah. Ishmael son of Nethaniah, Johanan and Jonathan sons of Kareah, Sariah son of Tanhumeth, the sons of Ephi the Netophathite, Jezaniah son of the Maccathite, they and their men. To them and to their men Gedaliah son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, swore an oath. Do not be afraid, he said, of serving the Chaldeans. Stay in the country, serve the king of Babylon, and all will go well with you. I for my part, as the man answerable to the Chaldeans when they come to us, shall stay here at Mizpah, whereas you can harvest the wine, summer fruit and oil, fill your storage jars and settle in the towns which you have seized. Similarly, when all the Judeans living in Moab, with the Ammonites, in Edom and elsewhere, heard that the king of Babylon had left a remnant in Judah and had appointed Gedaliah son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, as their governor, the Judeans all came back from wherever they had been driven. On their return to the land of Judah, to Gedaliah at Mizpah, they harvested an immense quantity of wine and summer fruit. Now Johanan son of Kareah and all the military leaders still in the field came to Gedaliah at Mizpah and said to him, Are you aware that Bali's king of the Ammonites has sent Ishmael son of Nethaniah to assassinate you? But Gedaliah son of Ahikam would not believe them. Johanan son of Kareah then spoke in secret to Gedaliah at Mizpah, as follows, Please let me go and kill Ishmael son of Nethaniah, and no one will be any the wiser. Why should he assassinate you and cause the dispersal of all the Judeans who have rallied round you? Why should the remnant of Judah perish? But Gedaliah son of Ahikam replied to Johanan son of Kareah, You will do no such thing, for what you say about Ishmael is false. Jeremiah, chapter 41. In the 7th month, however, Ishmael son of Nethaniah son of Elishama, who was of royal descent, came with officers of the king and 10 men to Gedaliah son of Ahikam at Mizpah. And as they were taking their meal together, there at Mizpah, Ishmael son of Nethaniah stood up with his 10 men, and attacking Gedaliah son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, with their swords, they killed the man whom the king of Babylon had made governor of the country. And all the Judeans who were with him, that is with Gedaliah at Mizpah, and the Chaldean soldiers who happened to be there, Ishmael killed too. On the day after the murder of Gedaliah, before the news had become known, 80 men arrived from Shechem, Shiloh, and Samaria, with their beards shaved off, their clothing torn, and covered in self-inflicted gashes. They were bringing cereal offerings and incense with them to present to the temple of Yahweh. Ishmael son of Nethaniah went out of Mizpah to meet them, weeping as he went. When he met them he said, Come to Gedaliah son of Ahikam. But once they were well inside the town, Ishmael son of Nethaniah slaughtered them, with the help of his men, and had them thrown into the storage well. There were 10 of them, however, who said to Ishmael, "Do not kill us. We have stocks of wheat and barley, oil and honey, hidden away in the fields." So he spared them and did not kill them with their brothers. The storage well into which Ishmael threw the corpses of all the men he had killed was a large one, the one which King Asa had built as a precaution against Baasha king of Israel. Ishmael son of Nethaniah filled it with the slaughtered men. Ishmael then took all the rest of the people prisoner who were at Mizpah, the king's daughters and all the remaining people in Mizpah, whom Nebuzaradan, commander of the guard, had entrusted to Gedaliah son of Ahikam. Ishmael son of Nethaniah took them prisoner and set out, intending to cross over to the Ammonites. When Johanan son of Kareah and all the military leaders who were with him heard about all the crimes committed by Ishmael son of Nethaniah, they mustered all their men and set out to attack Ishmael son of Nethaniah. They caught up with him at the great pool of Gibeon. At the sight of Johanan son of Kareah and all the military leaders with him, all the people with Ishmael were delighted. All the people whom Ishmael had taken as prisoners from Mizpah turned about, went back and joined Johanan son of Kareah. Ishmael son of Nethaniah, however, escaped from Johanan with 8 of his men and fled to the Ammonites. Johanan son of Kareah and all the military leaders with him then rallied all the remaining people whom Ishmael son of Nethaniah had taken as prisoners from Mizpah after killing Gedaliah son of Ahikam. Men, fighting men, women, children and eunuchs, whom they brought back from Gibeon. Setting off, they made a halt at Con Kimham near Bethlehem, intending to go on to Egypt, to get away from the Chaldeans. They were now terrified of them, since Ishmael son of Nethaniah had killed Gedaliah son of Ahikam, whom the king of Babylon had made governor of the country. Jeremiah, chapter 42. Then all the military leaders, in particular Johanan son of Kareah and Azariah son of Hoshea, and all the people from least to greatest, approached the prophet Jeremiah and said, "Please hear our petition and intercede with Yahweh your God for us and for all this remnant. And how few of us are left out of many, your own eyes can see, so that Yahweh your God may show us the way we are to go and what we must do." The prophet Jeremiah replied, "I hear you. I will indeed pray to Yahweh your God as you ask. And whatever answer Yahweh your God gives you, I will tell you, keeping nothing back from you." They in their turn said to Jeremiah, "May Yahweh be a true and faithful witness against us, if we do not follow the instructions that Yahweh your God sends us through you. Whether we like it or not, we shall obey the voice of Yahweh our God to whom we are sending you, so that we may prosper by obeying the voice of Yahweh our God." 10 days later the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah. He then summoned Johanan son of Kareah and all the military leaders who were with him, and all the people from least to greatest, and said, "Yahweh, God of Israel, to whom you deputed me to present your petition, says this: If you will only stay in this country, I shall build you and not overthrow you. I shall plant you and not uproot you, for I am sorry about the disaster I have inflicted on you. Do not be afraid of the king of Babylon, whom you fear now. Do not fear him, Yahweh declares, for I am with you to save you and rescue you from his clutches. I shall take pity on you, so that he pities you and lets you return to your native soil. But if you say, 'We will not stay in this country,' if you disobey the voice of Yahweh your God, and say, 'No, Egypt is where we shall go, where we shall not see war or hear the trumpet call or go short of food, that is where we want to live,' in that case, remnant of Judah, listen to Yahweh's word. Yahweh Sabaoth, God of Israel, says this: If you are determined to go to Egypt, and if you do go and settle there, the sword you fear will overtake you there in Egypt, and there you will die. Yes, all those who are determined to go to Egypt and settle there will die by sword, famine, and plague. Not a single one of them will survive or escape the disaster I shall inflict on them. Yes, Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this: Just as my furious anger was poured out on the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so will my fury be poured out on you if you go to Egypt. You will become an object of execration and horror, a curse, a laughingstock, and you will never see this place again. Remnant of Judah, Yahweh has told you, do not go into Egypt. Understand clearly that today I have given you a solemn warning. You were not being sincere when you sent me to Yahweh your God and said, "Intercede for us with Yahweh our God. Tell us exactly what Yahweh our God says and we will do it." Today I have told you, but you have not obeyed the voice of Yahweh your God or any part of the message he sent me to give you. So understand this clearly. You will die by sword, famine and plague in the place where you want to go and settle. Jeremiah, chapter 43. When Jeremiah had finished telling all the people all the words of Yahweh their God, which Yahweh their God had sent him to tell them, all the words quoted above, Azariah son of Hoshea, and Johanan son of Kareah, and all those arrogant men, said to Jeremiah, "You are lying. Yahweh our God did not send you to say, 'Do not go to Egypt and settle there.' It was Baruch son of Neriah, who keeps inciting you against us, to hand us over to the Chaldeans so that they can put us to death or deport us to Babylon." So neither Johanan nor any of the military leaders nor any of the people obeyed the voice of Yahweh by staying in the country of Judah. Instead, Johanan son of Kareah and all the military leaders led off the entire remnant of Judah, those who had come back from all the nations where they had been driven to live in the country of Judah. Men, women, children, the royal princesses too, and every single person that Nebuzaradan commander of the guard had left with Gedaliah son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, including the prophet Jeremiah and Baruch son of Neriah. And so, in disobedience to the voice of Yahweh, they reached Egypt and arrived at Tapanhes. At Tapanhes the word of Yahweh was addressed to Jeremiah as follows: "Take some large stones and bury them in the cement on the terrace outside the entrance of Pharaoh's palace in Tapanhes, where the Judeans can see you. Then say to them, 'Yahweh, God of Israel, says this: Look, I shall send for my servant Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and he will place his throne on these stones I have buried, and spread his canopy above them. When he comes, he will defeat Egypt, those for the plague to the plague, those for captivity to captivity, those for the sword to the sword. He will set fire to the temples of the gods of Egypt. He will burn these gods or take them prisoner, like a shepherd wrapping his cloak round him. So he will wrap Egypt round him, and then leave without anyone laying hands on him. He will break the obelisks of the temple of the sun in Egypt, and burn down the temples of the gods of Egypt." Jeremiah, chapter 44. The word that came to Jeremiah for all the Judeans living in Egypt, those, that is, living in Migdol, Tapanhes, Noph and the territory of Pathros. Yahweh Sabaoth, God of Israel, says this: "You have seen all the disaster I have brought on Jerusalem and all the towns of Judah. Today they lie in ruins and uninhabited. This was because of the wicked deeds they committed to provoke my anger, by going and offering incense and serving other gods whom neither they, nor you, nor your ancestors knew anything about. Although I urgently and untiringly sent you all my servants the prophets to say, 'You must not do this loathsome thing, which I hate.' But they would not listen or pay attention, and turn from their wickedness and stop offering incense to other gods. And so my furious anger overflowed, burning down the towns of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem, which were reduced to ruins and wasteland, as they still are today. And now Yahweh, God Sabaoth, God of Israel, says this: Why bring complete disaster on yourselves by cutting yourselves off from Judah, your men, women, children and babes in arms, so as to leave yourselves no remnant, by provoking my wrath by your actions, offering incense to other gods in Egypt where you have come to settle, as though bent on your own destruction and on becoming a curse and a laughingstock for all the nations of the earth? Have you forgotten the wicked deeds of your ancestors, of the kings of Judah and of your princes, your own wicked deeds and those of your wives, committed in the country of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem? To this day they have felt neither contrition nor fear. They have not observed my law or my statutes, which I prescribed for you, as for your ancestors. So, Yahweh Sabaoth, God of Israel, says this: Look, I have determined on disaster and shall destroy Judah completely. I shall take the remnant of Judah who were determined to come to Egypt and settle there, and in Egypt they will perish. They will fall to the sword or perish of famine, from least to greatest. By sword and famine they will die and be an object of execration and horror, a curse, a laughingstock. I shall punish those who live in Egypt just as I punished Jerusalem, by sword, famine, and plague. Of the remnant of Judah which has come to settle in Egypt, not a single one will escape or survive to return to the country of Judah where they long to return and live. For none of them will return, except a few refugees. At this, all the men who knew that their wives offered incense to other gods, and all the women who were standing there, a great crowd, and all the people living in Egypt in Pathros, answered Jeremiah as follows, We have no intention of listening to the word you have just spoken to us in Yahweh's name, but intend to go on doing all we have vowed to do, offering incense to the Queen of Heaven and pouring libations in her honor, as we used to do, we and our ancestors, our kings and our chief men in the towns of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem. We had food in plenty then, we lived well, we suffered no disasters. But since we gave up offering incense to the Queen of Heaven and pouring libations in her honor, we have been destitute and have perished either by sword or by famine. Besides, when we offer incense to the Queen of Heaven and pour libations in her honor, do you think we make cakes for her with her features on them, and pour libations to her, without our husband's knowledge? To all the people, men and women, all those who had made this answer, Jeremiah retorted, The incense you offered in the towns of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem, you, your ancestors, your kings, your chief men and the people at large, was this not what Yahweh kept remembering, and found so repellent that Yahweh could not endure your misdeeds and your loathsome practices any longer, with the result that your country has become the uninhabited ruin, the object of horror and cursing it is today, because you offered incense, because you sinned against Yahweh, refusing to listen to the voice of Yahweh, or to observe His law, His statutes and His decrees. That is why the present disaster has overtaken you. Further, Jeremiah said to all the people, and particularly to all the women, Listen to the word of Yahweh, all you Judeans in Egypt. Yahweh Sabaoth, God of Israel, says this, you and your wives, what your mouths promised, your hands have indeed performed. You said, We shall punctiliously fulfill the vows we have made and offer incense to the Queen of Heaven and pour libations in her honor. Very well, keep your vows, perform them punctiliously. But listen to the word of Yahweh, all you Judeans living in Egypt. I swear by my great name, Yahweh says, that my name will no longer be uttered by any man of Judah throughout Egypt. No one will say, As Lord Yahweh lives. No, I am going to keep my eye on them for disaster, not for prosperity, and all the Judeans in Egypt will perish either by the sword or by famine until they are wiped out. Yet, though few in number, those who escape the sword will return to the country of Judah from Egypt. Then the entire remnant of Judah which has come and settled in Egypt will know whose word comes true, mine or theirs. And here is the sign for you, Yahweh declares, that I shall punish you in this place, so that you will know that the words with which I threaten you will come true. Yahweh says this, Look, I shall hand Pharaoh Hophra, king of Egypt, over to his enemies and to those determined to kill him, just as I handed Zedekiah king of Judah over to his enemy Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, who was determined to kill him. Jeremiah, chapter 45. The word that the prophet Jeremiah addressed to Baruch son of Neriah when the latter wrote these words down in a book at Jeremiah's dictation in the 4th year of Jehoiakim son of Josiah, king of Judah. This is what Yahweh God of Israel says about you, Baruch. You have been thinking, What disaster for me, and Yahweh has added further grief to my troubles. I am worn out with groaning, and find no relief. Say to him as follows, Yahweh says this, Now I am knocking down what I have built, am uprooting what I have planted, over the whole country. And you ask for special treatment. Do not ask, for I am now going to bring disaster on all humanity, Yahweh declares. But you I shall allow to escape with your life, wherever you may go. Jeremiah, chapter 46. The words of Yahweh that were addressed to the prophet Jeremiah against the nations. On Egypt, against the army of Pharaoh Necho king of Egypt, which was at Carchemish on the river Euphrates when Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon defeated it in the 4th year of Jehoiakim son of Josiah, king of Judah. Buckler and shield at the ready. Onward to battle. Harness the horses. Into the saddle, horsemen. To your ranks. On with your helmets. Sharpen your spears. Put on your breastplates. Why do I see them retreating, panic-stricken? Their heroes, beaten back, are fleeing headlong, with not a look behind. Terror on every side, Yahweh declares. No flight for the swift, no escape for the strong. Up in the north on the river Euphrates, they have collapsed, have fallen. Who was it rose like the Nile, his waters foaming like a torrent? Why, Egypt rose like the Nile, his waters foaming like a torrent. I shall rise, he said, and drown the earth. Sweep away town and its inhabitants. Charge, horses. Forward, chariots. Let the warriors advance. Men from Cush and Put with shield in hand. Men from Lud who bend the bow. For this is the day of Lord Yahweh Sabaoth, a day of vengeance when he takes revenge on his foes. The sword will devour until gorged, until drunk with their blood. For Lord Yahweh Sabaoth is holding a sacrificial feast in the land of the north, on the river Euphrates. Go up to Gilead and fetch balm, virgin daughter of Egypt. You multiply remedies in vain. Nothing can cure you. The nations have heard of your shame. Your wailing fills the world. For warrior has stumbled against warrior, and both have fallen together. The word that came from Yahweh to the prophet Jeremiah when Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon advanced to attack Egypt. Publish it in Egypt. Proclaim it in Migdol. Proclaim it in Noph and Topans. Say, stand your ground, be prepared. For the sword is devouring all round you. Why has Apis fled? Why has your mighty one not stood firm? Why, Yahweh has overturned him. He has caused many to fall. Falling over one another, they say, up, and back to our own people, to the country where we were born, away from the devastating sword. They have given Pharaoh king of Egypt the nickname, much noise but lets the chance slip by. As I live, the king declares, whose name is Yahweh Sabaoth, he is coming, a very Tabor among mountains, a Carmel high above the sea. Get your bundle ready for exile. Fair inhabitant of Egypt, Noph will be reduced to a desert, desolate, uninhabited. Egypt was a splendid heifer, but a gadfly from the north has settled on her. The mercenaries she had with her, these two were like fattened calves, but they too have taken to their heels, have all run away, not held their ground, for their day of disaster has overtaken them, their time for being punished. Hear her hissing like a snake as they advance in force to fall on her with their axes. Like woodcutters, they will fell her forest, Yahweh declares. However impenetrable it was, for they are more numerous than locusts, there is no counting them. The daughter of Egypt is put to shame, handed over to a people from the north. Yahweh Sabaoth, God of Israel, has said, Look, I shall punish Ammon of No, Pharaoh, Egypt, its gods, its kings, Pharaoh and those who put their trust in him. I shall hand him over to those who are determined to kill him, to Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, to his generals. But afterwards, Egypt will be inhabited again as in the past, Yahweh declares. But do not be afraid, my servant Jacob, Israel, do not be alarmed. For look, I shall rescue you from afar and your descendants from the country where they are captive. Jacob will return and be at peace, secure, with no one to trouble him. Do not be afraid, my servant Jacob, Yahweh declares, for I am with you. I shall make an end of all the nations where I have driven you, but I shall not make an end of you. I shall discipline you only as you deserve, not leaving you quite unpunished. Jeremiah, chapter 47. The word of Yahweh that came to Jeremiah about the Philistines before Pharaoh attacked Gaza. Yahweh says this: Look, the waters are rising from the north to become an overwhelming flood, overwhelming the country and all in it, the town and its inhabitants. People cry for help, and there is wailing from all the country's inhabitants at the thunder of his chargers' hoofs, the crash of his chariots, the grinding of his wheels. Fathers forget about their children. Their hands fall limp because the day has come for all the Philistines to be destroyed, for Tyre and Sidon to be stripped to the last of their allies. Yes, Yahweh is destroying the Philistines, the remnant from the Isle of Caphtor. Baldness has befallen Gaza. Ashkelon has been reduced to silence. You who remain in the valley, how long will you gash yourselves? O sword of Yahweh, how long before you rest? Back into your scabbard, stop, keep still. Yet how can it rest when Yahweh has given it an order, Ashkelon and the sea coast, the targets assigned to it? Jeremiah, chapter 48. On Moab. Yahweh, God of Israel, says this: Wretched Nebo, for it has been ravaged. Kiriathaim has been shamed and taken, shame and distraction on the citadel. The pride of Moab is no more. At Heshbon they plotted her downfall. Come, let us put an end to her as a nation. And you too, inhabitants of Madmen, will be silenced. The sword will be after you. A cry of agony goes up from Horonaim, devastation, dire calamity. Moab has been shattered. The agonized cries of her little ones ring out. Up the slope of Luhith, weeping they go. On the road down to Horonaim is heard the shriek of disaster. Away! Flee for your lives like the wild donkey into the desert. Yes, since you relied on your deeds and your wealth, you will be captured too. Chemosh will go into exile, with all his priests and princes. The despoiler will descend on every town, not one will escape. The valley will be ravaged, the plain be plundered as Yahweh has said. Give Moab wings so that she can fly away, for her towns will be laid in ruins where no one will ever live again. Accursed be he who does Yahweh's work negligently. Accursed be he who deprives his sword of blood. From his youth Moab lived at ease. He settled on his lees, never having been decanted, never having gone into exile. And so he kept his own flavor, his aroma was unchanged. And so the days are coming, Yahweh declares, when I shall send him decanters to decant him. They will empty his pitchers and break his wine jars to bits. Moab will be shamed by Chemosh then, as the house of Israel was shamed by Bethel in which they put their trust. How can you say, we are heroes, sturdy fighting men? Moab has been ravaged, his cities scaled. The flower of his youth goes down to the slaughter, declares the king, whose name is Yahweh Sabaoth. Moab's ruin is coming soon. His downfall comes at top speed. Grieve for him, all you living near him, all you who knew his name. Say, how shattered it is, that mighty rod, that splendid scepter. Come down from your glory, sit on the parched ground, daughter of Dibon. For the despoiler of Moab has advanced on you, he has destroyed your strongholds. Stand by the roadside, keep watch, daughter of Aroer. Question fugitive and runaway, ask, what has happened? Moab has been shattered and shamed. Wail and shriek, shout along the Arnon, Moab has been laid waste. Judgment has also come on the plain, on Holon, Jaza, Mephith, Dibon, Nebo, Beth Diblathaim, Kiriathaim, Beth Gamel, Beth Meon, Kerioth, Bozrah, and all the towns of Moab, far and near. Moab's horn has been cut off. His arm is broken, Yahweh declares. Make him drunk. He has set himself up against Yahweh. Let Moab wallow in his vomit and become a laughingstock in his turn. Was Israel not a laughingstock to you? Was he caught red-handed with the thieves, for you to shake your head whenever you mention him? Leave the towns, make the rocks your home, inhabitants of Moab. Learn from the dove that makes its nest in the walls of the gaping gorge. We have heard about Moab's pride. So very proud. What arrogance! What pride! What conceit! What a haughty heart! I know all about his presumption, Yahweh declares, his empty boasting, those empty deeds of his. And so I lament for Moab. For all Moab I raise my cry and mourn for the people of Kir-Heres. More than for Jazer I weep for you, vineyard of Sibmah. Your shoots stretched beyond the sea, they reached all the way to Jazer. On your harvest and vintage the despoiler has descended. Gladness and joy have vanished from the orchards of Moab. I have dried up the wine in the presses. The treader of grapes treads no more. The joyful shouting has ceased. The cries of Heshbon and Elili can be heard as far as Jahaz. The shrieks resound from Zor to Horonaim and Eglath-Shelishiyah. For even the waters of Nimrim have become a wasteland. And in Moab I shall make an end, Yahweh declares, of anyone offering sacrifice on the high places and anyone offering incense to his gods. That is why my heart sobs like a flute for Moab, sobs like a flute for the people of Kir-Heres, since the wealth he had acquired is lost. Yes, every head is shaved, every beard cut off, gashes are on every hand, sackcloth round every waist. On all the housetops of Moab and in all its squares there is nothing but lamenting. For I have broken Moab like an unwanted pot, Yahweh declares. How shattered he is! Wail! Moab so shamefully in retreat. Moab has become a laughingstock, a thing of horror to all his neighbors. For Yahweh says this, look, like an eagle, he will hover, spreading his wings over Moab. The towns have been captured, the strongholds seized, and the heart of Moab's warriors, that day, will be like that of a woman in labor pains. Moab will be destroyed, no longer a people, for setting itself up against Yahweh. Terror, the pit and the snare for you, inhabitant of Moab, Yahweh declares. And anyone who escapes from terror will fall into the pit, and anyone who climbs out of the pit will be caught in the snare. Yes, I shall bring all this on Moab when the year comes for punishing them, Yahweh declares. In the shelter of Heshbon the fugitives have paused, exhausted. But fire will burst from Heshbon, a flame from the palace of Sion, consuming the brows of Moab, the head of a turbulent brood. Disaster for you, Moab! The people of Chemosh are lost. For your sons have been taken into exile and your daughters into captivity. But I shall bring back Moab's captives in the final days, Yahweh declares. Thus far the judgment on Moab. Jeremiah, chapter 49. To the Ammonites, Yahweh says this, has Israel no sons? Has he no heir? Why should Milcom have inherited Gad and his people have settled in its towns? And so the days are coming, Yahweh declares, when I shall make the war cry ring out for Rabbah of the Ammonites. She will become a desolate mound and her daughter towns will be burnt down. Then Israel will inherit from his heirs, Yahweh says. Wail, Heshbon, for Ar has been laid waste. Shriek, daughters of Rabbah. Wrap yourself in sackcloth, raise the dirge, run to and fro among the sheep pens. For Milcom is going into exile, with all his priests and princes. How you used to glory in your valley, rebellious daughter, confident in your resources. Who will dare to attack me? Look, I shall bring terror on you, Lord Yahweh Sabaoth declares, from all directions. You shall be driven away, everyone for himself, with no one to rally the fugitives. But later I shall bring back the captive Ammonites, Yahweh declares. To Edom, Yahweh says this, is there no wisdom left in Teman? Have the shrewd run out of common sense? Has their wisdom vanished? Away! Take to your heels. Go into hiding, inhabitants of Dedan. For I shall bring ruin on Esau when the time comes for me to punish him. If grape pickers were to come to you, would they not leave a few gleanings? If robbers came during the night, would they not steal only as much as they wanted? But I for my part have stripped Esau, have laid his hiding places bare. He can hide no longer. His race is destroyed, so are his brothers and neighbors. He is no more. Leave your orphans, I shall support them, and let your widows rely on me. For Yahweh says this, Look, those who would not have had to drink the cup will have to drink it all the same. So why should you go unpunished? You will not go unpunished, but will certainly have to drink. For by my own self I have sworn, Yahweh declares, that Bozrah will become an object of horror, a laughingstock, a desert, a curse, and all its towns ruins forever. I have received a message from Yahweh. A herald has been sent throughout the nations. Muster. March against this people. Prepare for battle. For look, I shall reduce you to the smallest of nations, to the most despised of people. Your reputation for ferocity, your proud heart has misled you. You whose home is in the crannies of the rock, who cling to the top of the peak. Though you make your nest as high as the eagles, I shall bring you down from there, Yahweh declares. Edom will become an object of horror. Everyone going near will be appalled, and whistle at the sight of all her wounds. As at the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah and their neighboring towns, no one will live there any more, Yahweh says. No human being settle there again. Look, like a lion he climbs from the thickets of the Jordan to the perennial pasture. In a flash, I shall make them run away, and there appoint someone I shall choose. For who is there like me? Who can hale me into court? Name me the shepherd who can stand up to me. So now hear the plan that Yahweh has laid against Edom, the schemes he has in mind against the inhabitants of Teman. They will certainly be dragged away like the smallest of the flock. Their pastures will certainly be sacked before their eyes. The earth quakes at the sound of their downfall. The sound of it echoes to the sea of reeds. Look, like an eagle, he will soar and hover, spreading his wings over Bozrah. And the heart of Edom's warriors, that day, will be like that of a woman in labor pains. To Damascus, Hamath and Arpad are shamed, for they have heard bad news. They are convulsed with anxiety like the sea that cannot be calmed. Damascus is aghast, she prepares for flight, she is seized with trembling, anguish and sorrow have laid hold on her as on a woman in labor. What now? That famous town deserted, that city of gaiety? And so in her squares her young men will fall, and all her fighting men will perish. That day, Yahweh Sabaoth declares, I shall light a fire inside the walls of Damascus, to devour the palaces of Ben-Hadad, to Kedar and the kingdoms of Hazor, which were conquered by Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon. Yahweh says this, Up, march on Kedar, destroy the sons of the east. Let their tents and their flocks be captured, their tent cloths and all their gear. Let their camels be seized and the shout go up, terror on every side. Away! Get into hiding as fast as you can, inhabitants of Hazor, Yahweh declares. For Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon has made a plan against you. He has a scheme in mind against you. Up, march on a nation at its ease, living secure, Yahweh declares, that has no gates, no bars, that lives in a remote place. Their camels will be the plunder, their countless sheep the spoil. I shall scatter them to the winds, those cropheads, and bring ruin on them from every side, Yahweh declares. Hazor will become the lair of jackals, desolate forever. No one will live there any more. No human being settle there again. The word of Yahweh that came to the prophet Jeremiah about Elam. At the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah king of Judah, Yahweh Sabaoth says this, Look, I shall break Elam's bow, the source of his might. I shall bring 4 winds on Elam from the 4 corners of the sky, and I shall scatter them to all these winds. There will not be a single nation to which people expelled from Elam do not go. I shall make the Elamites tremble before their enemies, before those determined to kill them. I shall bring disaster on them, my burning anger, Yahweh declares. I shall pursue them with the sword until I have destroyed them all. I shall set up my throne in Elam, uprooting its king and princes, Yahweh declares. In the final days, I shall bring Elam's captives back, Yahweh declares. Jeremiah, chapter 50. The word that Yahweh spoke against Babylon, against the country of the Chaldeans, through the prophet Jeremiah. Announce it to the nations, proclaim it, hoist a signal and proclaim it, making no secret of it. Say, Babylon is captured, Bel disgraced, Marduk shattered. Her idols are disgraced, her obscenities shattered. For a nation is marching on her from the north, to turn her country into a desert. No one will live there any more. Human and animal have fled and gone. In those days and at that time the people of Israel will return, they and the people of Judah. They will come weeping in search of Yahweh their God. They will ask the way to Zion and turn their faces towards her. Come, let us bind ourselves to Yahweh by an everlasting covenant never to be forgotten. Lost sheep, such were my people. Their shepherds led them astray, the mountains misled them. From mountain to hill they went, forgetful of their fold. Whoever came across them devoured them. Their enemies said, We are not to blame, since they have sinned against Yahweh, the home of justice, against Yahweh, the hope of their ancestors. Escape from Babylon. Leave the country of the Chaldeans. Be like he-goats, leading the sheep. For look, I shall raise a league of mighty nations to attack Babylon, from the land of the north. They will take up position against her. By them she will be taken. Their arrows, like an experienced soldier's, never return in vain. Chaldea will be plundered. All her plunderers will be satisfied, Yahweh declares. Rejoice. Have your triumph, you plunderers of my heritage. Be playful like a heifer led out to grass. Neigh like stallions. But your mother is covered with shame. Disgraced is the woman who bore you. She is the least of nations now. A desert, a parched land, a wasteland. Because of Yahweh's anger, no one will live there any more. She will become a total solitude. All who pass by Babylon will be appalled and whistle at the sight of all her wounds. Take position against Babylon. Surround her, all you who bend the bow. Shoot at her. Do not spare your arrows, for she has sinned against Yahweh. Raise the war cry against her from all sides. She surrenders. Her bastions fall. Her walls collapse. This is Yahweh's vengeance. Take revenge on her. Treat her as she has treated others. Deprive Babylon of the man who sows, of the man who wields the sickle at harvest. Away from the devastating sword, let everyone return to his own people. Let everyone flee to his own country. Israel was a straying sheep pursued by lions. First, the king of Assyria devoured him, and latterly Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon crunched his bones. So Yahweh Sabaoth, God of Israel, says this: Look, I shall punish the king of Babylon and his country as I punished the king of Assyria. I will bring Israel back to his pastures to browse on Carmel and in Bashan, on the highlands of Ephraim and in Gilead, and he will be satisfied. In those days and at that time, Yahweh declares, you may look for Israel's guilt. It will not be there. For Judah's sins, you will not find them. For I shall pardon the remnant that I leave. March on the country of Merathaim. March on it and on the inhabitants of Pekod. Slaughter and curse with destruction every last one of them. Yahweh declares, carry out my orders to the letter. The din of battle fills the country. Immense destruction. How utterly shattered that hammer of the whole world! What a thing of horror Babylon has become throughout the nations! I set a snare for you, Babylon. You were caught before you knew it. You have been found and overpowered for having defied Yahweh. Yahweh has opened his armory and taken out the weapons of his fury. For Lord Yahweh Sabaoth has work to do in the country of the Chaldeans. Fall on her from every side. Open her granaries, pile her in heaps, curse her with destruction, until nothing is left of her. Slaughter all her bulls, down to the slaughterhouse with them. Disaster on them, their day has come, their time for being punished. Listen. Fugitives and runaways from the country of Babylon arrive in Zion and proclaim the revenge of Yahweh our God, revenge for his temple. Call up the archers against Babylon. All you who bend the bow, invest her on all sides, leave her no way of escape. Repay her as her deeds deserve. Treat her as she has treated others, for she was arrogant to Yahweh, to the Holy One of Israel. And so in her squares her young men will fall, and all her fighting men will perish. That day, Yahweh declares, My quarrel is with you, arrogance. Lord Yahweh Sabaoth declares, Your day has come, the time for me to punish you. Arrogance will stumble, she will fall, no one will lift her up. I shall set fire to her towns and it will devour all around it. Yahweh Sabaoth says this, The people of Israel are oppressed, and the people of Judah too. All their captors hold them fast, they will not let them go. But their Redeemer is strong. Yahweh Sabaoth is his name. He will take up their cause, to give our country rest but make the inhabitants of Babylon tremble. A sword against the Chaldeans, Yahweh declares, against the inhabitants of Babylon, against her princes and her sages. A sword against her diviners. May they lose their wits. A sword against her warriors. May they panic. A sword against her horses, her chariots and the conglomeration of people inside her. May they be like women. A sword against her treasures. May they be plundered. Drought on her waters. May they dry up. For it is a country of idols, and they are mad about those bogies of theirs. Hence wild cats and jackals will live there, and ostriches make their home there. She will never again be inhabited, forever, but remain uninhabited age after age. As when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, and their neighboring towns, Yahweh declares, no one will live there any more, no human being settle there again. Look, a people is coming from the north, a mighty nation. From the far ends of the earth many kings are stirring. They are armed with bow and spear. They are cruel and pitiless. Their noise is like the roaring of the sea. They ride horses, ready as one man to fight you, daughter of Babylon. The king of Babylon has heard the news. His hands fall limp. Anguish has seized him. Pain like that of a woman in labor. Look, like a lion he climbs the thickets of the Jordan to the perennial pasture. In a flash I shall make them run away, and there appoint someone I shall choose. For who is there like me? Who can hale me into court? Name me the shepherd who can stand up to me. So now hear the plan that Yahweh has laid against Babylon, the schemes he has in mind against the country of the Chaldeans. They will certainly be dragged away like the smallest in the flock. Their pastures will certainly be sacked before their eyes. The earth quakes at the sound of Babylon's capture, and the shouting echoes through the nations. Jeremiah, chapter 51. Yahweh says this, Against Babylon and the inhabitants of Lebkamai I shall rouse a destructive wind. I shall send winnowers to Babylon to winnow her and leave her country bare. For she will be beleaguered on all sides, on the day of disaster. Let no archer bend his bow. Let no man swagger in his breastplate. No quarter for her young men. Curse her whole army with destruction. In the country of the Chaldeans the slaughtered will fall. In the streets of Babylon, those run through by the sword. For Israel and Judah have not been bereft of their God, Yahweh Sabaoth, although their country was full of sin against the Holy One of Israel. Escape from Babylon, save your lives, each one of you. Do not perish for her guilt, for now is the time for Yahweh's vengeance. He will pay her her reward. Babylon was a golden cup in Yahweh's hand. She made the whole world drunk. The nations drank her wine and then went mad. Babylon has suddenly fallen, is broken. Wail for her. Fetch balm for her wounds. Perhaps she can be cured. We tried to cure Babylon. She has got no better. Leave her alone and let us each go to his own country. Yes, her sentence reaches to the sky, rises to the very clouds. Yahweh has shown the uprightness of our cause. Come, let us tell in Zion what Yahweh our God has done. Sharpen the arrows. Fill the quivers. Yahweh has roused the spirit of the kings of the Medes, because he has a plan against Babylon to destroy it. This is Yahweh's revenge, revenge for his temple. Against the walls of Babylon raise the standard. Strengthen the guard. Post the sentries. Take up concealed positions. For Yahweh has both planned and done what he promised he would to the inhabitants of Babylon. Enthroned beside abundant waters, rich in treasures, you now meet your end, the finish of your pillaging. By his own self Yahweh Sabaoth has sworn, I shall fill you with men as though with grasshoppers, and over you they will raise the triumph shout. By his power he made the earth, by his wisdom set the world firm, by his discernment spread out the heavens. When he thunders there is a roaring of waters in heaven. He raises clouds from the furthest limits of the earth, makes the lightning flash for the downpour, and brings the wind from his storehouse. At this everyone stands stupefied, uncomprehending. Every goldsmith blushes for his idols. His castings are but delusion, with no breath in them. They are futile, a laughable production. When the time comes for them to be punished, they will vanish. The heritage of Jacob is not like these, for he is the maker of everything, and Israel is the tribe that is his heritage. His name is Yahweh Sabaoth. You are my mace, a weapon of war. With you I crushed nations, struck kingdoms down. With you crushed horse and rider. With you crushed chariot and charioteer. With you crushed man and woman. With you crushed old man and young. With you crushed young man and girl. With you crushed shepherd and flock. With you crushed plowman and team. With you crushed governors and magistrates. And I shall repay Babylon and the inhabitants of Chaldea before your eyes, for all the wrongs they have done to Zion. Yahweh declares, I am setting myself against you, mountain of destruction. Yahweh declares, destroyer of the whole world. I shall reach out my hand for you and send you tumbling from the crags and make you a burnt-out mountain. No cornerstone will be taken from you again, and no foundation stone, for you will be a desert forever, Yahweh declares. Raise the standard throughout the world. Sound the trumpet among the nations. Consecrate nations to make war on her. Summon kingdoms against her. Ararat, Minni, Ashkenaz. Appoint a recruiting officer for her enemies. Bring up the cavalry, bristling like locusts. Consecrate nations to make war on her. The kings of Media, her governors, all her magistrates and the whole territory under their rule. Then the earth trembled and writhed, for Yahweh's plan against Babylon was being executed, to change the country of Babylon into an unpopulated desert. The warriors of Babylon have done with fighting. They have stayed inside their fortresses. Their courage exhausted, they are now like women. Her houses are on fire. Her gates are shattered. Courier follows close on courier, messenger on messenger, to tell the king of Babylon that his city has been taken from all sides, the fords occupied, the bastions burnt down, and the fighting men seized with panic. For Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this, the daughter of Babylon is like a threshing floor when it is being trodden. A little while, and then the time for harvesting her will come. He devoured me, consumed me, Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, left me like an empty dish, like the dragon he has swallowed me whole, filled his belly with my titbits and threw me out. On Babylon be the wounds I suffered, the daughter of Zion will say. On the inhabitants of Chaldea be my blood. Jerusalem will say. So, Yahweh says this, look, I am taking up your cause to make sure you are avenged. I shall dry her river up, make her springs run dry. Babylon will become a heap of stones, the lair of jackals, a thing of horror and of scorn, with no one living in it. Like lions they roar together, they growl like lions' whelps. Are they feverish? I will prepare them a drink and make them drink until they are tipsy and fall into an everlasting sleep, never to wake again, Yahweh declares. I will drag them away to the slaughterhouse like lambs, like rams and goats. What? Has Shishak been taken, been conquered, the pride of the whole world? What a thing of horror Babylon has become throughout the nations! The sea has risen over Babylon. She sinks beneath its boisterous waves. Her towns have been turned into wasteland, a parched land, a desert, a country where no one lives and where nobody goes. I shall punish Bel in Babylon and make him disgorge what he has swallowed. In future the nations will stream to him no more. The very walls of Babylon will fall. Get out of her, my people. Save your lives, each one of you, from Yahweh's furious anger. But do not be faint-hearted. Do not take fright at rumors hawked round the country. One rumor spreads 1 year, next year another follows. Violence rules on earth and one tyrant succeeds another. So look, the days are coming when I shall punish the idols of Babylon. Her entire country will be humbled, with all her slaughtered lying on home soil. The heaven and earth and all within them will shout for joy over Babylon. For the destroyers from the north are coming to her, Yahweh declares. Babylon in her turn must fall, you slaughtered ones of Israel. Just as through Babylon there fell men slaughtered all over the world. You who have escaped her sword, leave her, do not wait. Remember Yahweh from afar. Let Jerusalem come into your mind. We were ashamed when we heard of the outrage. We were covered in confusion because foreigners had entered the temple of Yahweh's holy places. So look, the days are coming, Yahweh declares, when I shall punish her idols, and the wounded will groan throughout her country. Were Babylon to scale the heavens or reinforce her towering citadel, destroyers would still come to her on my orders, Yahweh declares. The din of shouting from Babylon, of immense destruction, from the country of the Chaldeans. Yes, Yahweh is laying Babylon waste and silencing her monstrous din, whose waves used to roar like the ocean and their tumultuous voices rang out. For the destroyer has fallen on Babylon. Her warriors are captured. Their bows are broken. Yes, Yahweh is a God of retribution. He never fails to repay. I shall make her princes and her sages drink, her governors, her magistrates, her warriors. They will fall into an everlasting sleep, never to wake again, declares the King, whose name is Yahweh Sabaoth. Yahweh Sabaoth says this: the walls of Babylon the Great will be razed to the ground, and her lofty gates will be burnt down. Thus peoples toil for nothing and nations wear themselves out for the flames. This is the order that the prophet Jeremiah gave to Seraiah son of Neriah, son of Maaseiah, when Seraiah left for Babylon with Zedekiah king of Judah, in the 4th year of his reign. Seraiah was Lord Chamberlain. Now, on one sheet, Jeremiah had written down the entire disaster that was to befall Babylon. That is, all these words recorded here against Babylon. Jeremiah then said to Seraiah, when you reach Babylon, see to it that you read all these words aloud. Then say, you, Yahweh, have promised to destroy this place, so that no one will live here ever again, neither human nor animal, and it will be desolate forever. Then, when you have finished reading this sheet, tie a stone to it and throw it into the middle of the Euphrates, with the words, so shall Babylon sink, never to rise again from the disaster which I am going to bring on her. Thus far the words of Jeremiah. Jeremiah, chapter 52. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he came to the throne, and he reigned for 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, daughter of Jeremiah, of Libnah. He did what is displeasing to Yahweh, just as Jehoiakim had done. That this should happen to Jerusalem and Judah was due to Yahweh's anger, resulting in his casting them away from his presence. Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. In the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, on the 10th day of the month, Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon advanced on Jerusalem with his entire army. He pitched camp in front of the city and threw up earthworks round it. The city lay under siege till the 11th year of King Zedekiah. In the 4th month, on the 9th day of the month, when famine was raging in the city and there was no food for the populace, a breach was made in the city wall. The king and all the fighting men then fled, leaving the city under cover of dark, by way of the gate between the two walls, which is near the king's garden. The Chaldeans had surrounded the city, and made his way towards the Arabah. The Chaldean troops pursued the king and caught up with Zedekiah in the plains of Jericho, where all his troops deserted. But the Chaldeans captured the king and took him to the king of Babylon at Riblah in the territory of Hamath, where he passed sentence on him. He had Zedekiah's sons slaughtered before his eyes. He also had all the chief men of Judah put to death at Riblah. He then put out Zedekiah's eyes and, loading him with chains, the king of Babylon carried him off to Babylon, where he kept him prisoner until his dying day. In the 5th month, on the 10th day of the month, it was in the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, Nebuzaradan commander of the guard, a member of the king of Babylon's staff, entered Jerusalem. He burnt down the temple of Yahweh, the royal palace and all the houses in Jerusalem. The Chaldean troops who accompanied the commander of the guard demolished all the walls surrounding Jerusalem. Nebuzaradan commander of the guard deported some of the poor people and the remainder of the population left in the city, the deserters who had gone over to the king of Babylon, and the rest of the artisans. But Nebuzaradan commander of the guard left some of the poor country people behind as vineyard workers and ploughmen. The Chaldeans broke up the bronze pillars from the temple of Yahweh, the wheeled stands and the bronze sea, which were in the temple of Yahweh, and took all the bronze away to Babylon. They also took the ash containers, the scoops, the knives, the sprinkling bowls, the incense bowls, and all the bronze furnishings used in worship. The commander of the guard also took the bowls, the censers, the sprinkling bowls, the ash containers, the lampstands, the goblets and the saucers, everything that was made of gold and everything made of silver. As regards the 2 pillars, the 1 sea, the 12 bronze oxen supporting the sea, and the wheeled stands, which King Solomon had made for the temple of Yahweh, there was no reckoning the weight of bronze in all these objects. As regards the pillars, the height of one pillar was 18 cubits, its circumference was 12 cubits, it was 4 fingers thick and hollow inside. On it stood a capital of bronze, the height of the capital being 5 cubits. Round the capital were filigree and pomegranates, all in bronze. So also for the 2nd pillar. There were 96 pomegranates round the sides, making 100 pomegranates round the filigree in all. The commander of the guard took prisoner Seraiah the chief priest, Zephaniah the priest next in rank, and the 3 guardians of the threshold. In the city, he took prisoner an official who was in command of the fighting men, 7 of the king's personal friends who were discovered in the city, the secretary to the army commander responsible for military conscription, and 60 men of distinction discovered in the city. Nebuzaradan commander of the guard took these men and brought them to the king of Babylon at Riblah. And at Riblah, in the territory of Hamath, the king of Babylon had them put to death. Thus Judah was deported from its country. The number of people deported by Nebuchadnezzar was as follows. In the 7th year, 3,023 Judeans. In the 18th year of Nebuchadnezzar, 832 persons were deported from Jerusalem. In the 23rd year of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuzaradan commander of the guard deported 745 Judeans. In all, 4,600 persons. But in the 37th year of the exile of Jehoiakim king of Judah, in the 12th month, on the 25th day of the month, Evil-Merodach king of Babylon, in the year he came to the throne, pardoned Jehoiakim king of Judah and released him from prison. He treated him kindly and allotted him a seat above those of the other kings who were with him in Babylon. So Jehoiakim laid aside his prisoner's garb and for the rest of his life always ate at the king's table. And his upkeep was permanently ensured by the king, day after day, for the rest of his life until the day he died.